ઓકે, એટલે કર્યું તમે લોગિન થઈ શક્યા કે નહીં? આમ લઈ જાઓ ફોન. We just start meeting in 2-3 minutes. Just allow the participants to join. Just we start in 2-3 minutes only.
શું ચાલુ કર્યું પપ્પાએ?
કયું? કશું નહીં કામ. મારું કોન્ફરન્સ ચાલે છે. હજુ ચાલુ નહીં થઈ.
Ready? Hello. Tuition માટે ready? મમ્મી ready થઈ ગઈ છે? હા, નીકળું છું.
Hello everyone. Am I audible? Hello everyone. Am I audible?
Yes, Chintan, you are audible.
Yes, Chintan, you are audible.
Shri Krishna Jai Ambe.
Okay, thank you. Rajan sir, are you there, sir?
Yeah, I am there.
Yes, sir. Good afternoon, everyone. Good afternoon, Rajan sir. Good afternoon to all the members of Gandhinagar City Study Circle. Today we have arranged the seminar on major areas of the bank branch audit. and we are fortunate enough that we have got such a very well-known faculties. Both two faculties we have got today for the subject of bank branch audit, and both are very popular and well-known, and we are lucky enough to get their time for our study circle. So, one of the first faculty for the today is Rajan Bhai Shah, and the second faculty for today is CA Hitesh Pomal. Both of them we are very well aware of as such, but still as a part of the formality, I just go. I introduce today's faculty, CA Rajan Shah. I know him since before I became CA. Was like my father always used to give his name, that he is a very sincere and very knowledgeable chartered accountant. So it is, I know him since my early days of my graduation or my CA. So this is my personal relation with Rajan Bhai. He is a chartered accountant. He has done his DISA. He has cleared the exam for the certified concurrent auditor, and he is into the practice, and he is having the experience of almost 25 years. He is a senior partner of the one of the most reputed firm of Ahmedabad, Messrs. R.S. Patel and Company. He has his specialized area itself is central statutory audit and PSU of the PSU banks. He is also handling the concurrent audit and internal audit of banks and the listed and unlisted companies and the insurance and public sector companies. He is conducting various types of assignments of the bank audit and the other banks. He is also involved into the various investigations and the forensic audit of the SEBI and FMC, CDSL, NSDL, etc. He has also done various other certificate courses of the ICI. He has delivered plenty of lectures at the various forums of the ICI at Ahmedabad branch and various other places in Gujarat as well as whole of the India. So with this brief note, I introduce today's faculty. With this brief note, I now, without taking much of the time, I hand over the session to Rajan sir for discussing the important points of the bank branch audit. Over to you, Rajan sir.
Yes. ये वॉल्यूम तूने कम किया था ना? कम है.
Thank you, Chintan Bhai, for a warm introduction. Am I audible?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. You are audible.
Yeah. Thank you for a warm introduction. It's a pleasure to give a presentation on bank branch audit to this esteemed audience. As discussed with Chintan Bhai, our focus areas will be the major areas what you come across under bank branch audit. So I would like to share my presentation. Chintan Bhai, can you allow me to share my presentation?
Yes, sir.
What should I make it?
Just a second. You are the new host, and now you can share it, sir.
Okay. There is some technical issue.
ના આ સર છે ને બાજુમાં પી લખેલું છે ને સર પાવર પોઈન્ટ એના પર જ ક્લિક કરો ને સર એમાં કઈ કરવાનું નથી આ તમે પ્રેઝન્ટેશન જે પી લખ્યું છે એના પર જ ક્લિક કરો ને સર આ ગૂગલ ક્રોમ ની બાજુમાં શું આ નીચે પી લખ્યું છે એના પર ક્લિક કરો ને સર એટલે તમારું પીપીટી ખુલી જશે સર
They are asking something else.
ના 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 એના પર ક્લિક જ નથી કરવાનું સર આ નીચે 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 ગૂગલ નીચે આ 40 ડિગ્રી ટેમ્પરેચર ને લખ્યું છે ને ત્યાં આગળ
ये ना ઉપડી જાય
પી લખ્યું છે ને પાવર પોઈન્ટ પ્રેઝન્ટેશન નો પી
હોય ને ખોટી રીતે વીકી માર્યું હોય ને પછી ઉપડી જુ કરવાનું હા. સારું સારું સારું. ઓકે.
સર બાજુમાં ક્લિક કરો ને પી ઉપર થઈ જશે. હા સર કઈ ઇશ્યુ સર શેર થાય છે ને સર ખાલી પીપીટી ખોલી દો ને સર આ બાજુમાં તમે જે ઝૂમ ની જે લિંક આ તમે જે નીચે જ હા સોરી
Am I now audible? Chintan, am I audible?
yes sir you are audible.
Okay, shall we commence now? Yeah, okay. Sorry for
yes
the,
sir yes
sorry
sir
for
yes
the,
sir
sorry for the inconvenience to the members. Just a bit of a technical hitch. Now, see, there are two main aspects we would like to cover under the major issues of the bank branch audit. One is the reporting requirement, and second is the review and verification processes, which as an auditor one should follow. So briefly explaining the reporting requirement first, and then we'll be going in a detail for review and verification. As an auditor, reporting requirement, first major aspect is branch audit report. Chintan, I would also like it to be an interactive session. So if any members have any issue regarding any topic, they can always ask me during the course of the presentation. Coming to the branch audit report. See, as an auditor, it is the only area whereby you can give your communication to the central statutory auditors. So in branch audit report, before finalizing or looking at the branch audit report, what as an auditor one should look into it. See, branch audit report, there are in certain banks standardized branch audit report prepared by the central statutory auditors only. They themselves forward it. But in which few of the instances I would like to just highlight it, that the certain provisions, for example, are made at head office level, like gratuity, taxes, leave encashment, other employee benefits, investment related, and many such other areas, say provision for NPA. Those provisions are generally taken care at the head office level. So while you are doing the branch audit report, you should make very clear understanding of the reporting format and should understand it very clearly. These are the provisions which are not going to be applicable at the branch level. If certain things are even say not mentioned in the draft report shared by your central statutory auditors to you, you should also make a point. If even if it is not mentioned, you should clearly point out that these are the areas taken care at head office level and which should not be considered as a part of your audit report. Otherwise, you are unnecessarily taking the responsibility on your shoulder, which is not part of your duty. So that is first part. Second, number of banks have their own closing return formats. These closing return formats contains, for instance, areas like NPA verification, NPA classification, then other forex exposure, DICGC claims, etc. Around 30 to 40 annexures are there. So as an auditor, it is expected for you to sign those annexures. But before signing those annexures, make sure that is duly verified. Our practical experience as a central auditors, what we have observed is that sometimes these closing returns are no doubt being signed by the branch auditors, but it does not matches with the data what is already there in the system. So as an auditor, we should take adequate supporting documents to substantiate whatever we are verifying it. Then there are other certifications. LFAR, a lot of people are experienced. So long form audit report is one of the other reporting requirement. Of course, we will be covering certain major areas during those course of the presentation. Tax audit report and MOC. MOC is a very important aspect of your reporting requirement. Even if it is nil, you have to always certify it. But the important part in MOC is the reasoning and the effects. For example, I would just like to give a small example. If you are classifying, say, one of the account which as per branch is standard, but in your view is an NPA, and you are issuing that as an NOC in your closing returns. But you should make sure that the other effects also are given properly. For example, you classify that account an NPA, but whether you make sure that you have done the interest reversal MOC also, because what we have happened, auditors say, okay, we have done the NPA, but that is not the only thing. You have to say that what are the other corresponding effects also. So if there is an interest reversal, you have to make sure that there is an interest reversal MOC also being given. If there are charges reversal entry, charges reversal entries are given. Another major important aspect in MOC, even in particularly in NPAs, you might have classified a particular account as an NPA, say a term loan account. But practically what happened, you have to consider the CIF, that is the customer identification number of that borrower, because as per RBI norms, it is very clear it's the borrower who becomes an NPA, not a particular account of that borrower. So you have to make sure that when you give the MOC, all the accounts of that particular borrower are NPA, not only a single account. So there, and again, the interest reversal and charges reversal entry are to be given in effect in the MOC. So make sure that the MOCs are correctly drafted, and that is why it forms an important part of this. Now coming to the areas of verification. The four major areas are balance sheet, P&L, systems and controls, closing returns, and certificates. Okay, now coming to the review of balance sheet. As an auditor, these are the areas, major areas of a balance sheet of a branch. Liabilities contains deposits, other liabilities, interbranch account. So as an auditor, the question generally normally arises here, liability, what should I see in the liabilities? For example, in deposits. So see these, when you are doing this, you have to link it with your P&L. In P&L, there is an expense for interest on deposits. So while reviewing the deposits, you have to link it with the P&L and you have to make a ratio analysis. So you will be practically, it will not be possible to ascertain whether the deposits, all the deposits interest are duly accounted or not. There will be thousands of accounts in a particular branch of deposits. So as an auditor, you can take a sample of 5 or 10 accounts just to verify that the accounting is properly done as per the rates and the tenure and everything prescribed. But the major aspect is you have to do the trend analysis, and that is where the bank branch audit auditor has to play a major role. Suppose, for example, in a branch which you are auditing, say the opening deposit is 100 crores and closing deposit is say 150. You cannot simply take an 125 as an average. What ideally you should do it, you should take a monthly outstanding of each deposit. So by taking monthly outstanding of each deposit, you will get an average across the period, and on that average you should apply the interest what is charged and arrive at the rates, or you should reverse way, you should apply the rates and arrive at the interest. So whereby as an auditor you are satisfied that the interest in expenses in the deposits are duly passed and duly accounted, because ultimately you are supposed to certify the branch P&L also. The other aspects on the liability side is the other liability. This is a very major important part, because what happens practically, banks do a lot of provision in this other liabilities account. In this other liability account, what they generally do is they park the various accounts like suspense and others as a credit balance, or even sometimes some recoveries are also passed where it is pending for settlement. So for that, a detailed scrutiny of other liabilities should take place. And in that case, there are certain sensitive accounts which should be closely monitored, like suspense account. Then there are sundry credits accounts where you have certain credits. Most important thing in other liabilities is a lot of banks do their closing provision of expenses in other liabilities by debiting expense accounts. So in other liability, there will be number of 10, 20 subcodes. So sub-ledgers will be there. In each sub-ledger, there could be certain entry. For example, electricity expenses, rent expenses, where the provisions are done as per the closing guidelines of the banks. You have to make sure that that provision entries are duly there in other liabilities, and that will, other liabilities will give you an idea in the accounts in which the provision is either made or not made. And if it is to be made and not accounted in other liabilities, you have to make sure that you pass a requisite MOC. Of course, materiality in that requisite MOC has to be taken in consideration. And the important part in that aspect is certain banks have prescribing in their closing guidelines the materiality threshold. Say example 25,000, 50,000. In our experience, what we have seen as a central auditors, we used to draft the closing guidelines wherein we used to say okay, the amount above 50,000 should be part of the MOC as far as impact of P&L balance sheet is concerned. Not for NPA. For NPA, even a single rupee has to be classified as NPA. But from the balance sheet point of view, there could be materiality. So you should refer the closing guidelines of the banks very carefully. So unnecessary, you don't end up in taking cognizance of immaterial items, rather than the focus would be more on the material item. Another important branch on the liability side is the interbranch account. So the interbranch account again is very important, because every bank at the close of the financial year pass the interest entry in the interbranch accounts. Ultimately, HO will either debit or credit the interbranch account and corresponding entry for interest. Either interest could be an income for the, if it is a deposit, major deposit branch, you have to make sure that thing. If the branch is having the major portfolio of deposits and lesser portfolio of advances, it will be going to get an interest income from the interbranch account. And If the major portion is advances, then it will be an interest expense in your branch P&L, which the HO will charge to you. There are of course various parameters. It has been given the weightage apart from the advances and deposits while charging the interest in inter-branch account of the by the head office from the branch or vice versa. In that scenario, what happens? Sometimes there are points given for number of accounts being opened, number of targets achieved, there are various parameters considered for transferring the inter-branch interest. So that working you should always ask for, and you should make sure that the accounting is properly done. Otherwise, it will be not reflected true and fair view. So that is as far as the deposit portion is concerned. Now coming to the asset portion. Asset verification. First item is the cash. The aspects which you as an auditor should consider is, of course, the physical verification. You have to do it once. Sometimes you have to scroll back. So for example, say if you are doing audit after 31st, then you might take the physical cash verification either as 3rd and 4th, and then do the reverse working to arrive at the 31st closing balance, because as an auditor you are expected to certify that. Other aspect you have to consider from the fraudulent angle is, and the reporting angle is, there should be a joint custody. The cash, if it is exceeding the retention limit, every branch has been prescribed the retention limit which they can hold in form of cash by their higher authorities like region office or zonal office as applicable. So that aspect you have to make sure that it gets reported. Insurance, in majority of the cases, it is generally taken by the higher authorities, but branch insurance, you should make sure that it is duly covered. Balance with other banks. Balance with other banks. In that, you have to make sure that you obtain the balance confirmation. Reconciliation again is a major aspect, because sometimes what happens, if a branch wants to play around, what they do is, in order to have this classification of NPA being hidden, what they will do is they will deposit a check shown under the bank reconciliation, and then that check will either be returned on 5th or 8th April post your audit. So when scrutinizing the ledger of advances account, you will observe, okay, recovery has come, so that this account is standard. But actually, it's a play by the branch where they deposit the check, actually make only the entry. Actually, the physical check is not given. And so in particularly as far as bank reconciliation, that major outstanding check entries, you should make sure those entries are duly verified, because in number of cases we have observed a bank take the check and pass the entry branch and actually doesn't deposit for clearing, because they are knowing that this check is not going to pass. But since that entry is passed in the Finacle or whatever software the bank is using, that amount will be shown under bank reconciliation, and thereby the account will be shown as standard. So you have to make sure that bank balance confirmation and reconciliation are duly verified. Investment, I don't think it will be a major issue as far as the branch audit is concerned, because in majority of the branches, those is taken care by the head office portion only. Next is the advances. So in advances, the major portion is the threshold limit. The threshold, I think, sorry, there's some issue. Yeah, the threshold limit for large borrow account, this is as per the RBI guidelines. So in that scenario, what we have to see is, advance about 10% of total outstanding balance. So every branch where the advances of a particular borrower is more than 10% of the total outstanding balance, or rupees more than 10 crore, whichever is lower, you have to give a separate LFR reporting for that particular account. RBI has prescribed in LFR a special checklist of around 3 to 4 pages covering various areas. As an auditor, this limit is mandatory for us to follow. So you have to first arrive at the total outstanding, and you have to go at the major accounts and do the analysis in Excel to arrive at the advances about 10% or 10 crore. Of course, 10 crore you can directly get it out, but even if it is 10 less than 10 crore, so you are, so for example, you are having a branch which is having a advance of 20 crores, and there are say 4 accounts above 2 crores, and for each account you are supposed to give a separate annexure highlighting each aspects of that particular account. Generally, as in central auditors, we have observed that those guidelines are sometimes not being properly followed, and then branch manager after completion has been again been asked to give that details in that particular annexure. So that is there, and you have to give the reporting over and above the above limits in top 5 accounts where you have to give adverse comments if you have observed anything during the course of the audit of advances. Now coming to the areas which you should mainly cover as a part of verification in advancing. First is the compliance of the bank's policies and instruction as a part of their credit appraisal. This is also a part of the LFR also. I am covering only the major aspects. In that, one is the major thing is the compliance of bank's policies and instructions. See, you understand the one thing, sometimes people have this professional brothers have this thing, maine to branch audits my limited, I am having a very limited liability because I am just restricting, but that will not be the case. Tomorrow, if any issue happens, since we are doing forensic audit, we know that whenever any account goes NPA and then the forensic audit takes place, and in that forensic audit, if certain observations have been observed by the forensic auditors, but if those transactions have taken place during the course of your statutory audit, and if you have not reported, then you may also be called for questioning by the various legal authorities, because ultimately they say that all auditors are responsible for their work, and as a part of that, you will be also be asked how you have done the audit or why you have not reported certain observations. So definitely we would like I would like you clearly comment on the bank's policies and instruction compliances and particular advances. Even if there are serious remarks, make sure you do it properly. Then list of quick mortality case. See, as per RBI guidelines, an advance, if it becomes an NPA in less than 12 months of its sanction or disbursement, then it has to be classified as quick mortality case. And in that, you have to specifically report this, because as per instructions of the various banks, in case of quick mortality, there is a staff accountability issue involved. So the bank will say in 1 year of the advances, why the account has become NPA. In that scenario, you should have a special comment on that accounts also. Loan applications and documents you have to verify as a part of your audit process, and have to make that if there are any serious comments on this, you have to make that also. Discrepancies on review and renew. So again, in a cash credit account or a term loans account, if they are annually reviewed, you have to make sure that the renewal is duly taken care, because as per RBI guidelines, an account has to be reviewed annually and up to within the 18 months from the first erstwhile sanction. So if you are not able to renew, if the branch has not done the review or as per these guidelines, then the account becomes NPA. Practically what we have observed as an auditor, in Finacle there is a field for renewal and review. So what the branch does is, So for example, an account is falling due, say on 1st September 2021, but if he doesn't review before 31st March, then the account becomes NPA. So what he will do is, he will, in the system, he will enter say 1st December review date, 1st January. But if you ask for the review documents, sometimes we practically find it is not there. He has just done in the system. So the system will not classify that account as an NPA, because system will say, okay, 1st January the review has taken place. But practically the branch has not done the actual review which is required as per the bank guidelines. And in absence of that review being done, the accounts technically becomes NPA simply by updating the data in the Finacle or in any CBS system. It is not that the account becomes regular, but the branch has to process it. And in the review, if the powers are not with the branch, then it has to be reviewed by the higher authorities like the region office or central office, as the case may be. So you have to make sure that the renew and review is properly done. This is the one of the major risk prone areas as far as NPA classifications are concerned. Interest rate. Again, interest rate and credit rating are linked because it directly affects your PNL. Every bank has its own policy for interest rates, and these interest rate scenarios are linked with the credit rating. So if a customer is having higher credit rating, he will be charged lesser interest. But there is always a premium being charged over and above the MCLR, which is fixed by the bank. So what happens, that premium is linked with the credit rating. Practically what we have observed during the course of our audit is, those credit rating linkages are not observed as far as the rate of interest are concerned. So for example, if in a X bank, as per the credit rating, if the credit rating comes to B minus, then a premium of say 2% over MCLR has to be charged. But what happens is, though the credit rating might have come at B minus, but while feeding in the Finacle, the person might have said MCLR plus 1% only. So whereby there is a revenue leakage, as well as the income which has to be accounted is not being properly accounted. So as an auditor, you are supposed to look into that and comment on that. Another major area is sanctioning and disbursement. The prime thing as an auditor, you have to verify that whatever sanction has taken place, whether it is as per the delegation of power of the respective branch or not. So that delegation of power, you should take the internal circulars of the bank as a part of your audit exercise and ascertain whether it has been done as per the delegation of power or not. Because in LFAR, there is one of the comments you have to make that the advances are sanctioned as per delegation of power. Again, linking it to the NP and the forensic part, what I have earlier stated. If you have stated that it is as per the delegation of power, and if tomorrow, if it turns out to be the branch manager was not having that delegation of power, then why as an auditor you have commented it is as per the delegation of power? So you have to make sure the respective delegation of power, or what we call is the DOP, is duly taken from the branch and it is done as per that only. Non-compliance of terms and the conditions. We have highlighted a few of the instances of the non-compliance of the terms and the conditions. One of these is the acknowledgement on the sanction terms and conditions. Sometimes what happens, the bank issues the sanction letter to the borrower, but the borrower himself does not confirm it. So what is the status in that scenario? Whether the borrower has accepted the terms and conditions or not. As an auditor, we should ask the branch, you get the acknowledgement by the respective borrowers. If you are not doing it, it implies that the borrower is not accepting all the terms and the conditions. Even though he is availing the fund, he is not accepting that. So that is the major non-compliance, because if he is not accepting, then he is not executing the documents as required. Then periodical inspection reports are not on records. Sometimes disbursement without LEI report. That is the engineers which are being specified. This is particularly related to term loan. In term loan, whenever there are capital expenditures, bank appoint the authorized LEI, that is the engineers, who will verify the actual progress of physical progress, and then they will arrive at the disbursement for the work executed. So that LEI report and CS certificate is must whenever any term loan disbursements, particularly relating to any project is taking place, say for example, construction of a building or a construction of a unit, then there are stage-wise disbursement taking place as and when the expenditure are incurred by the borrower. In that scenario, the LAI report and the CS certificate is must for that purpose. Loans to companies for buybacks, I think in majority of the cases it will not come at the branch level. Skipping it. Now coming to the documentation part. The few of the discrepancies in documentations which we observe is, in case of hypothecation and mortgage documents, what happens is that sometimes those documents are either understamped or not properly signed. Particularly in the case of the company, you have to make sure that you verify that the common seal is affixed, the resolution is there, duly authorizing the respective person who is signing those documents, and it should be duly approved. Similarly, in case of mortgage documents, one has to see to it various ancillary documents like the sale deeds, the registration of charge with the sub-registrar office. Even if it is a case of a society, then the registration of the charge with the society also takes place. So that is how those things one has to make sure. So that part is to be taken care as far as registration is concerned, of charge is concerned. Blank documentation, again, a major issue. In number of cases, we have observed borrowers sign the documents, branch manager takes the document, but he has not actually filled up the various details. For example, the limits, the authorities, various terms mentioned. So yeah, as an auditor, if those things are not mentioned, those are three serious things. You have to make sure that you comment that as a part of your reporting. Anyone is having any issue, or should I move ahead? Chintan bhai?
Yes, sir.
Any issue anyone is having, they can ask me, or shall I move ahead?
You go ahead, sir. Question answer we can keep at the end of the session, sir.
Okay, okay.
Yes, sir.
Then review, monitoring, and supervision. So in that part, what we will be expected is aging. What I have earlier stated also, one of the important requirements in the banking is the balance confirmation. See, everyone knows there is a limitation act which applies. In the limitation act, if the date confirmation is older than 3 years, then the date is not valid, and so you cannot recover. So what generally banks obtained is what they call is LAD, letter of acknowledgement of date. In that scenario, the letter of acknowledgement of date, it should be obtained every 3 years, rather 2.5 years. So that balance confirmation is must. Even though it's a running CC account, it has to be obtained. The account is reviewed annually, but the LAD is to be obtained every 2.5 years before the completion of the 3 years. Otherwise, legally it is not allowed to claim the dates from the borrower. So you have to make sure as an auditor you take that into consideration. Periodical statements such as monthly stock and book date statements, quarterly statements. One of the major serious areas of potential NPAs. See, drawing power has to be worked out on the basis of stock and book date statements. What happens is, as per RBI guidelines, if an account is overdrawn for more than 6 months, then the account becomes NPA. While scrutinizing any advances account, you should definitely look at the stock and book date statements. A thorough analysis will give you an idea to whether the stocks are moving or not moving. See, if they are not moving and simply they are just getting carried forward, then it's a sort of a red flag raised to you. And in that scenario, you should make sure you go in detail scrutiny of the stock statement and arrive at the correct drawing power. And if you arrive at the correct drawing power and if you observe that the account is becoming NPA, you should always flag it off, because if the same stock is, for example, is coming carry forward for more than 6 months, it's old which is getting carry forward. Similarly, there are book dates as per the bank sanction, say 90 days aging is allowed, but in certain scenario, if the book dates are old and getting continuously repeated the same book dates, so that book dates are to be excluded while calculating the drawing power. And in that scenario, the drawing power amount will reduce substantially if old book dates are carried forward. And in that way, it will affect the overall status of the account, and the accounts may turn out to be NPA. Periodical inspection is an internal process. And one thing I would like you to basically focus, if you find such suspicious account, do arrange a visit of that unit during the course of your audit, because you should insist and to get the correct picture before taking any final decision on its classification. Because while visiting the audit unit only, you will get to know what is happening, whether it is functioning, the turnover just being shown, whatever is there. So take a sample 1 or 2 units where you have a sort of an apprehension whether it is genuine or not on the basis of the documents. So that's why I would definitely suggest that should be a part of your audit process. For classification, every bank now has a system of classification through a system only of classifying them on a continuous basis. The important trigger for you would be the mock run, the second item which I'm highlighting, that is PNPA. What PNPA is? Potential NPA. So every bank has this report. The report name may be different, but it is a mock run, means those mock runs are taken place before the year ends, every weekly or fortnightly. The assumption in that mock run is if no recovery is taking place, then that account becomes NPA on 31st March. So for you auditor, it will be very easy if you take the mock run report, because those are the potential NPA identified by the bank themselves. And on that report only, the branch and their team follow for the recovery before 31st March. And it also gives us a trigger to verify that account in detail, because even though the branch might have come with the recovery of 31st March, but whether it is a window dressing or it's a genuine recovery, that's where this mock NPA PNPA report will give you a trigger. So as an auditor, when you are commencing the branch audit, take the latest PNPA report or a mock run report. Even suppose, for example, hypothetically, you are starting on say 27th or 28th of March, then also you can take the last report of 20 or 23rd, whatever is available. So it will give you a clear picture which are the first sensitive accounts and which are the accounts in which my prime focus should be there. Because those are the accounts which are showing vulnerable signs and which are susceptible. So for that, you have to make sure that your key focus areas should be one of these. Then compliance of RBI IRAC norms. Everyone knows this, those who have already done it. The important thing I would like to highlight here is the restructuring of advances. In MSME particularly, post-COVID, there are certain relaxations, and because of this restructuring of advances, a lot of accounts who were getting NPA are now becoming standard. So as an auditor, in a lot of branches, you might come under SME accounts which are restructured. The purpose is to see that the restructuring is done properly as per the guidelines and as per the bank's internal circulars. The compliance of all terms and conditions is mandatory in order to make that account standard if the account is under restructuring. Then in NPA classification, one more area is the legal action, in fact, which is linked to your provisioning requirement. In the various closing returns, though the actual total as a bank NPA provision accounting entry is done at head office, but the provisioning amount is derived from the closing returns which you are certifying. in the closing returns, they give the provisioning amount. So while verifying the closing returns in NPA accounts, you have to make sure that those provisionings are done properly, and for that, legal actions, whichever has been taken, you should go at those, read those papers, because what happens sometimes in that, the asset valuation makes an important point. Though you might be having a valuation report, but if you go take the look at the legal papers of the cases filed by the branch, you will be able to ascertain the valuation part also, though the valuation report might be showing some other picture. Because as per RBI guidelines, you have to take valuation every 3 years in all the accounts, including NPA accounts. Now in NPA account, they say, for example, an valuation is more than 2.5 years old. It may not be reflecting the correct picture. But if you look at the legal papers, you will find that, oh, there is no stock. So in the valuation, the stock might have been included. Similarly, in the valuation as a security part, book debts might have been included. But see, 2.5 years old book debts cannot be considered as an asset for the purpose of security calculation in provisioning NPA norms. So you have to make sure that you link your NPA account with the legal status also to arrive at the correcting provisioning sum. Another important part is the compliance of the recovery policy. Every bank has their own recovery policy. So certain banks, what they do is they appropriate the recovery in NPA first towards the principal and next towards the interest. Some other banks has another policy wherein they first appropriate towards the charges, interest recoverable, and then they apportion it towards the principal. So you have to make sure that recovery policy appropriation is done as per the policy. Practically, what we have observed, particularly in Finacle, there is a tab whereby those appropriation takes as per the guidelines. If those tabs are not duly marked in the Finacle, then what will happen is that recovery will be not apportioned as per the policy. So there is a chances of MOC coming here, because if the policy is saying you have to apportion the recovery first towards the principal, and in the account actually if you are apportioning towards the interest, then what will happen is that the branch income will shoot up, and similarly branch NPA will also have a corresponding impact. But if it is towards the principal, then the branch NPA will reduce than what is already shown. So then in that scenario, sharing from my experience in one of the branches, we have observed more than 30 MOCs in various accounts, because the branch was not following the recovery policy what is required as per the bank's internal guidelines. Non-fund based facilities. As an auditor, you are supposed to verify those things, a letter of credit and bank guarantee. See, the major part is the bank guarantee classification. Bank guarantee classification, there are two types of bank guarantees: performance guarantee and financial guarantee. As per the RBI norm, there are different capital requirements for performance guarantee and for financial guarantees. So when you are doing a performance guarantee, what you are supposed to do is that you have to verify that the performance guarantee are duly properly classified or not. If it is a financial guarantee and then also it has been getting classified as performance guarantee, it results into a lot of wrong capital charge. See, as per the RBI guidelines, there is a capital adequacy ratio (CRAR) which has to be followed, and a bank has to maintain minimum capital ratio. In that case, the risk weightage of financial guarantee is double than the performance guarantee. So the capital requirement is more, and particularly the commission also. In most of the banks, you will find there is 50 to 100% difference between performance guarantee commission and financial guarantee commission income. So if a branch is wrongly classified and guarantee as a performance guarantee instead of a financial guarantee, in that scenario, there is a loss of commission income as well as there is wrong classification. Again, sharing from my experience, in one of the branch which we were auditing as a central auditors, we have observed a guarantee amount of approximately 2,500 crores was classified as performance, though it was a financial guarantee. So the commission income was more than 1 CR which was getting impacted, but the capital charge which required was almost getting impacted by 80 CR to 100 CR. So it was a huge impact on the capital requirement, and therefore that classification is very important. Another important point is the list of the outstanding bills against which we have to verify these things. The NPA trigger you can ascertain also from the list of LC default and BG invoke. Because see, LC default means what? On the due date, for if you open an LC for purchase of goods and on the due date you are not honoring it, it implies that there is something fishy in the account. Or sometimes what happens is what we call in our common audit parlance is teaming and lading. Banks open the LC on the due date. First it gets devolved, then some money comes and the LC is paid. But effectively what happened is this LC might have got discounted earlier only. And the borrower might have received the money and might have paid some earlier date. And when this LC devolved, then he will open another LC, get it discounted and pay this earlier LC. So that's where it is very important to know, list down the cases of LC devolved and BG invoked, and to ascertain whether there is any teaming lading done or not. Fixed assets, I think I'm not supposed to comment much because other auditors are already experienced on that. Other assets is one of the most sensitive accounts, because what happens as per RBI guidelines, any amount in suspense account, if it is more than 6 months old, then for that amount the provision has to be done. Though the provision might have been done at the head office level, but the aging analysis is done at the branch level in one of your closing returns. So you have to make sure that that aging is done properly. Ultimately, on the basis of that aging, the provisioning is done. So if in a suspense account, if any entry is pending for more than 6 months old and there is no justifiable reason for that, then you have to definitely consider it as a part. Similarly, sometimes what happens, banks use these sundry deposits, suspense accounts to save the account from becoming NPA. They credit the borrower account and so issue some check and they debit to this sundry account. So if you in the borrower account, you will find that there is a recovery. So the account is standard, but actually it sometimes becomes a book entry only. So you have to take care, because ultimately that aging will give a lot of hint also if there are some fishy items going in the advances. Another aspect of liability, the aspect which I would like to just earlier I have covered it, but the compliance of KYC ML guidelines. This is actually not having any financial impact, but this is a important aspect in terms of regulatory requirements. What happens in that scenario is, in KYC ML guidelines, there are anti-money laundering, that is AML is anti-money laundering, and in that the PMLA Act applies. PMLA Act 2002 applies. It is Prevention of Money Laundering Act. Those, as an auditor, as a part of your documentation, you should verify sample KYC and give the observations in your LFR report. And during the course, if you have found some sensitive accounts, do flare it up. Because ultimately, if some money laundering is taking place, even though the transactions may look genuine, but if sometimes auditors feels that advances nahi hai, but that is not the case, because if some fraudulent money laundering is taking place, then also you have to make sure that you verify it. Other areas I think I have covered earlier also. Now coming to the PNL. In PNL, interest on advances. See, everyone will say the interest is getting credited on the basis of centralized processing. Okay, fair enough. But what I have stated earlier also, you have to link it with the yield. So that way you will get an additional comfort after scrutiny and analysis of that, whether it is being done or not. Other income, again, service charges, particularly guarantees, as I said, it should be done. with proper classification. Previous year comparison, after having the closing P&L, you should always do a comparison to ascertain the trend analysis. See, that was one of the ways as a part of branch audit to get an overview about the overall working. If you don't do the trend analysis and the comparison and the deviation, you will not be able to get the confidence whether you are signing a correct P&L or not. Because ultimately, practically, the time is very short. Sometimes you are being given 2-3 branches, and the deadlines are always looming large. Say, follow-up will be taking place from 7 tak ho gaya, 10 tak ho gaya, why it is getting late. So for that, before commencing the audit, only last year figures you should put it, and as and when you get the closing, you should do it on the same day if possible, the trend analysis itself. The trend analysis will give you a good amount of overall view whether there are major deviations or not. Then coming to the expenses part, in expenses, interest on deposit, I have already highlighted it. I have linked it with the liability side. Again, in particularly or as a part of audit process, we should do the sample verification of material expenses by looking at the P&L, because that will give you a clear idea if there are any provisionings to be made, and accordingly MOC has to be passed or not. That aspect will be taken care. Another important thing is the general controls, which as a part of your LFR reporting, you have to verification of gold and security items. See, security items are basically are those items like FDR receipts, FDR receipts, then DDs, checkbooks, which are highly fraud prone areas. So these are fraud prone areas where if on your sample verifications, if you don't found those things, do take it seriously and report it in your LFAR. As a part of your documentation, you should take a proper confirmation from the branch of, say, for example, having number of DDs, number of checks outstanding. They will be maintaining this in their system also, and accordingly they will be reporting it. So that part one has to do it. Fraud reporting. So if anything is observed during that part, you can have the fraud reporting portion also. In today's digital areas, one of the important things is the controls and the linkages with the system. So everyone is aware about the Nirav Modi case. It ideally, why it takes place? Because of this SWIFT only. What happened is the SWIFT was not integrated with CBS. So that message was getting independently passed, and the CBS accounting entries were not done, which related into those frauds, because those amounts, though, was shown as liability by the bank in the SWIFT system, but it was not reflected in the CBS system. So those discrepancies lead to the fraud. So the most important thing is, whenever you are doing this audit, these control lacunas, if they are not there, if they are there, you have to strongly report it in your LFR. Otherwise, it will be your responsibility also. The feature, one of the major feature which is part of the LFR since last, this is the second year, is the reporting of advanced comments of previous either branch auditor, internal auditor, auditor. So these additional responsibilities casted on us by RBI. Okay, now in LFAR you have to specifically comment. So for that purpose, you have to review each of these reports. Of course, by reviewing those reports, you will get a hint also on the functioning of a particular account or an overall functioning of the branch. But as a major portion, you have to make this reporting requirement mandatory. So you have to review all these reports. See, by simply reviewing it and not commenting also is not a correct position. You have to review it, and if the compliances are not made in the respective reports, you have to make sure that these are the uncompliant portion which you have to report against each report. Say for concurrent audit report, internal audit report is basically the branch internal inspection which is taking place. So that portion also you have to report. Another process reporting is data integrity. So data input control. So whether adequate controls are there, and various areas which you have to report in as a part of LFR is the MIS reports also. And in order to get that and to have an overall thing, exceptional report would be one of the keys. See, exceptional reports are the reports which are generated by the system on a daily basis. Those reports highlight the various exceptions other than which are thrown up by the system. So what happens in that scenario is, okay, a system throws up a particular transaction as an exceptional. See, that could be allowing the limit. For example, if a branch manager has allowed a particular account an excess drawing, it will be reported in exceptional transaction report. Similarly, if the checks are returned continuously, then also it gets reported in exceptional report. So if you generate the exceptional reports, I think I would suggest by thorough scrutiny of your exceptional report, almost 40 to 50% of your transaction audit will be completed. Documentation is a second, but as far as transaction audit is concerned, your 40 to 50% will be completed by looking at the exceptional report only, because it will give you the deviations which are observed by the system only, which are already non-compliant as per the branch or the bank's guidelines. Now coming to the other closing returns and certificates review. Off balance sheet items already I have highlighted regarding bank guarantee and LC. Then claim not acknowledged as date. Again, an important part. Provision to be made in fraud and suspense account. So that also I have highlighted. Ghosh and Tilani committee recommendations. Then other certifications. See, other certificates, again, an important part, particularly related to interest subvention. If people are having, say, branches of rural branches where the finance is mainly for agriculture finance, in that there are a lot of interest subvention claims are being done. And would like to highlight one case. What happened practically in the, I think in the 2012, 13, 14, there was some farm loan waiver of around 60,000 crore pan India by the government. After that, those waivers were passed on to the banks. But what happened? The interest subvention and the claims which were there were not proper as per the guidelines, which resulted into the claims being not accepted by the respective departments. So what happens in that scenario is that though the bank might have passed on those claims to the farmer or to the borrower, but they in turn couldn't get that because it was not in accordance. But and the observation was those the claims were also certified by the respective auditors. Then also they were rejected. So then in that scenario, it becomes very embarrassing for us as an auditors also if those claims get rejected. So we have to make sure that those certifications are done properly. Now coming to the few of the suggestions for drafting the report and the LFA. So what I would suggest is, one is the audit methodology. See, simply what we have observed is, in a lot of the cases in LFAR, people are writing yes, no, not applicable. No, you should not mention it. You should put it in a descriptive comment. And you should also mention your audit methodology accordingly. For example, you are taking certain samples. Then you should clearly mention in that also, okay, we have verified trends and advances account, 50 advances account, and on that basis our observations are there. Otherwise, what happens if you are not mentioning your sample details in your report? It is assumed that you have done the 100% verification. So it is very much important to mention that thing. Important other parties, the audit methodology or the process what you have followed. A simple case is cash verification or an ATM verification, ATM cash verification. In that, you have to make sure we have verified that and have done on sample basis the reverse reconciliation to arrive at the cash balance. Otherwise, by simply saying that the cash balance is found in order, it means you have verified on that particular date. And whether you have verified on sample basis or not. For example, in some of the banks branches which you might come across, there could be a currency chest also, and where the balance could be say 100 crore, 200 crore. It will not be practically possible for you to verify that 100 crore. So what you will do is you will verify certain sample beams, certain sample rings. On the basis of those verification, then you have to mention in the report that I verified 8 beams so and so, and 5 beams, and on that basis it is found to be in order. Otherwise, if you say that all the currency chests are okay, then it's your responsibility. In one of our audits, we have observed a fraud in currency chest where since the stakes are high, the amount maybe 100, 200, 300 crores are there. No one generally practically verifies this thing. But one time RBI tried to get 100% verification of each count, and on that, a substantial amount of more than 10 crores were found short, and it was then detected as a fraud. But the thing was, in every audit report, it was stated the currency chest is found in order. And but at a sorry state, I would like not to share it, but just to say the auditors were considered as one of the culprits for this, simply because they have reported the currency as the cash balance is tallied, and which was not tallied. And in fact, the legal proceedings are also going against the auditors. So if you mentioned at the time the description can be I have verified these 5 beans only, or these 5 bundles only, or something like that, that would have saved the day for you. And your reporting should be only on the facts, figures, and the examples. And the most important thing, you should take care if you are reporting something, some adverse comment, you have to also ascertain that whether there is any impact on the MOC also, because sometimes what happens in LFR, you give a long description that this is not done, that is not done, but at the same time whether it is having an impact, it has to be cross-linked, otherwise your reporting will be incorrect. So I will definitely suggest to make it sure if it is having a financial impact, it should be duly reported in the LFR also, highlighting the facts. Sorry, in the MOC also, highlighting the reasoning for why you considered that. See, and similarly, vice versa also, if you are reporting some MOC, but if you are not reporting in the LFR, then is also not correct. For example, you are reporting an account as an NPA in MOC, but then in LFR you are giving no comments, then it is not correct. So you have to make sure that those things are duly connected, properly reported, because that is this issue is we have observed across the board in number of audit reports when we were reviewing as a central auditors. Either it is mentioned in MOC but not mentioned in LFR, or vice versa. So we definitely suggest to look into that aspect. So that is the major things what we would like to cover. Now the house is open, and thank you all for your patient hearing.
Thank you, sir. Now, anyone have any question with regard to bank branch audit? Then they may ask to Rajan sir. સર મને એક જે ક્વેશ્ચન આવે સર, આપણે કોઈ કેસમાં બીજી હોય બેંક ગેરંટી, એ લેટ્સ સે કન્ડિશન ફૂલફિલ ના થઈ હોય અને એક્સરસાઇઝ થઈ હોય બીજી, તો એ કેસમાં એનું એનપીએ માં ક્યારે ક્લાસિફિકેશન થાય?
સી બેંક ગેરંટી
એ બેંક ગેરંટી જે ઓલી શું કહેવાય રિવોક થઈ હોય જે આ રહી है જે કંડિશન ફૂલફિલ ના થઈ એટલે જે તે ગવર્મેન્ટ ડિપાર્ટમેન્ટે કીધું હોય બેંકને કે ભાઈ નાવ give us the amount of bank guarantee તો એ કેસમાં એનું એનપીએ ક્લાસિફિકેશન લોન એડવાન્સ ની જેમ જ થાય સર
એનપીએ ક્લાસિફિકેશન રીતે જ થાય અને 90 days માં જો પૈસા ના ભરે તો if they don't deposit in the 90 days the amount which has been claimed by respective government department then definitely you will be having those issues.
Okay sir.
So in that case the 90 days terminal period has to be applied.
Okay sir.
And but you should, what I would suggest is you should link to the overall borrower's transactions also, because a particular standalone bank guarantee કરતા બીજા બધા accounts ને એની શું impact છે analysis કરી લેવું જોઈએ at that time, because if a bank guarantee is invoked there is always something not going as per plan and that could be something fishy also.
Okay sir.
So it should be taken into cognizance into.
ઓકે સર ઘણી વખત આપણે જે ટર્મ્સ કન્ડિશન હોય જે કોઈ પણ સેન્ક્શન ની તો એમાં એ લોકો મેન્શન કર્યું હોય કે ભાઈ ઓડિટેડ અકાઉન્ટ શુડ બી પ્રોડ્યુસ્ડ બ્લા 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 હવે ઘણી વખત કોઈ નાની લોનો હોય તો એમાં ઓડિટ એપ્લિકેબલ જ ના થતું હોય તો પછી એમાં વી હેવ ટુ લાઈક કન્સિડર અનઓડિટેડ બેંક બુક્સ હોય એને આપણે કન્સિડર કરીને જવા દેવાનું સર એવું કરવાનું
Audit report about 10 lakhs borrowing, that is mandatory. Am I audible?
Okay sir. હા you are audible sir. વચ્ચે કંઈક ના સંભળાયું સર હવે સંભળાયું.
હા એટલે એ જ કે 10 lakhs ઉપરનું જે પણ એડવાન્સીસ હોય એનામાં compulsory you have to have the audited accounts, that is mandatory. So if it is not there then you have to put as a part of your LFR report.
Okay. Though audit may not be applicable if his turnover is less than prescribed limit under Income Tax Act, but despite that, he needs to have books of account, audited books of account, right, sir?
Yes, that is an RBI independent guideline, irrespective of the requirement of tax audit or companies or LLPs. એને કોઈ રિલેશન જ નથી, મેન્ડેટરી હોવું જોઈએ. હા એ એક્ટમાં કરાવેલું હોય then it can be accepted.
Okay.
That is mandatory forever.
સર ઘણી વખત એવું થતું હોય કે જીએસટી ના ફિગરો હોય એના અને ઇન્કમ ટેક્સ ના આપણે માંગીએ ઓલા પાર્ટી જોડેથી તો એ પણ ઘણી વખત મેચ ના થતા હોય અથવા પાર્ટી ના આપે તો પછી એવા કિસ્સામાં સર
see our role starts once the credit appraisal is done.
Okay sir.
So credit appraisal is the discretion of the bank.
Okay sir.
એટલે એના એ figures લઈ અને balance sheet analysis કરી and then they do the sanctioning process. So
okay sir.
But our role at present does not go into GST reconciliation or tax reconciliation. That is not the part as far as bank branch audit is concerned.
Okay sir.
But particularly I would like to highlight one thing here is that GST of the branch itself generally gets reconciled at the central level. I'm saying the bank's overall GST. So as an auditor, you may not be able to get the branch GST data properly. So you should put a suitable note in the LFR or the disclaimer accordingly.
Okay. That આપણે એનો જીએસટી નું આપણે વેરીફાઈ નથી કરી શકીએ એના માટે પ્રોપર નોટ આપણે મૂકી દેવાની
because in the branch, see for example in Ahmedabad for Gujarat Bank might taken a one number for GST. Okay, but that reconciliation might be taking place either at the zonal office or at the head office. In your branch books, a GST payable or GST receivable balance might be showing, but you will not be able to get the comfort whether this balance is correct or not. So for that, you should always put a suitable note.
એવું કદાચ મને લાગે ટીડીએસ માં એવો જ પ્રશ્ન થાય ને સર કારણ કે ટીડીએસ માં જે છે એ એવો જ ઇશ્યુ થાય ને કે એની ડિમાન્ડ સપ્લાય ડિમાન્ડ આપણે જોઈ ના શકતા હોઈએ એમ કે કોઈ ડિમાન્ડ નીકળી છે લેટ ફાઇલિંગ ની ના અંતે નહીં
સી એમાં પણ એવું થાય ને કે એ આપણા પર્વ્યુ એટલા માટે ના આવે કે પર્ટિક્યુલર બ્રાન્ચમાં ના આવે. TDS numbers are controlled by the regional office or the zonal office. બ્રાન્ચ તો શું કરે છે, TDS કાપે છે, પછી TDS
Okay,
જમા
sir.
પણ એ લોકો ઘણી બેંકોમાં સેન્ટ્રલાઇઝ કરતા હોય છે on the basis of accounts. If the branch itself is doing, of course તમારે tax audit report માં એનું reporting કરવું પડે, because tax audit report હવે એમાં પણ શું છે, tax audit report ની policy bank to bank vary થાય છે. Some banks have a centralized tax auditors. Some banks enters the work of tax audit to branch auditor also of that branch. So if you are interested at work, if the branches which you are doing the audit, then you have to report in the tax audit report. Otherwise, if the tax audit is done centralized, then of course that will not be part of your fees also. Then accordingly, એને એ રીતે કરવું પડે છે.
Okay, sir. અને સર બીજું એક કે આ કોઈના રિટર્ન ના ભરાયા હોય, જે રિટર્ન શું એના આઈટીઆઈ ના આયા હોય, ડેટા જે માન લો કે સબમિટ ના કર્યા હોય, અને જે મંથલી સ્ટેટમેન્ટ, તો એના માન લો કે છેલ્લા 3 સ્ટેટમેન્ટ ના હોય, તો પછી વી હેવ ટુ બી લાઈક એને એટલે આપણે એનું પછી ડ્રોઈંગ લિમિટ આપણે 0 જ કન્સિડર કરી લેવાની થાય સર, એવું થાય?
હા, એવું એમાં એવું છે કે if I understand correctly from your example, કે ભાઈ say after December કોઈ stock statements આવ્યા જ નથી, બરોબર? For example, what happens is then as per RBI guidelines there is a 6 months limit for ascertaining the account as an NPA. So October, November, December, if the stock statements are there, then to December, to the extent of December DP, we have to calculate on the basis of that only. January, February, March, if the stock statements are not received, we can only give a reporting, but it cannot be classified as NPA simply on non-receipt of stock statement for 3 months. 6 મહિનાથી જૂના હોય અને ના હોય, then you have to consider it accordingly. But practically, if you ask me how issue થાય ને, તો you should always plan a visit to the unit, because if the unit, even if he is not submitting stock statement, your earlier December, November, October's data may not be correct. And if the stock audit is carried out by any other chartered accountant professional, you should review that stock audit report also. Thereafter, you should conclude the decision.
Okay. Right, sir. Good. Any other member have any doubt, sir? Anyone has any doubt, then we are lucky enough to have such a good faculty. Like આપણે કદાચ આપણો સામાન્યમાં સામાન્ય સવાલ હશે, which તો પણ આપણે કદાચ એમને પૂછી શકીએ એમ.
Hello.
Yeah, please.
Hello.
Go ahead.
I am asking regarding 194N. Hello.
Yeah, please continue. Please complete your question.
Yes, TDS under section 194N for withdrawal of cash.
Yeah.
So generally we found that branch is not having record of depositor. This is the deposit side. Depositor regarding income tax return filed for last 1 year, 2 year, 3 year, and accordingly the rate of TDS and threshold limit for withdrawal of cash is prescribed under 194N, and the 194N is not enforced by the branches in the absence of such record availability with the branch. Then what will be the role of the auditor to point out?
See, there are 2 aspects I would like to highlight. First is the non-compliance of non-deduction of tax. So if there is non-compliance as far as non-deduction of tax is concerned, you are supposed to, particularly if you are doing, though you may be doing tax audit or not, that is not the aspect, you should report it, because that is a lacuna of the system and non-compliance of the tax laws. So first part is there. Second part is regarding the system itself. What you should ideally do is whether the parameters itself has been properly set up in the system. As an auditor, you should understand that part also, because there are threshold limits, say 1 crore, etc., limits being prescribed for TDS for cash withdrawal. So if those limits and that parameters are not being prescribed in the system, then it's a much more major problem. Then you have to comment on the systems and the controls, what I earlier stated in my presentation. This is the non-compliant, the systems are not doing according. And as a role of an auditor, definitely you have to put it in your report. The thing is, if whether it has to be put in the audit branch audit report or in the LFAR, there is a distinction here. See, your branch audit report is on basically on the profitability and the balance sheet. So whether if it is impacting the profitability or the balance sheet aspect, you should put in the branch audit report. But if you are not, then you have to put it in the LFAR. So transition to transition, you have to take the decision about.
Okay, thank you.
But again, extending the point, I would like to say the branch audit report is the only, and the LFR is the only medium of communication and is the only medium whereby you are communicating and discharging your responsibilities. So make sure that drafting of those reports and communication should duly take place. And the most important thing also you should take is the MR letter, management representation letter. I mean, we are at every branch audit taking a management representation letter of nearly 6 to 7 pages, whereby, see, there are a number of representations being given to you by the branch officials. We are sometimes relying orally on them. In that scenario, we should take a representation. Sometimes you also face the issue the branch may not sign it also. So in that case, you suo moto issue a letter addressed to the branch. During the course of our audit, following representations were made by the branch, then list out the representations. And in the end, if you can also mention if anything is contrary to the above representations, kindly let us know within 2 days or within the signing of our report, before the signing of our report. So thereby you take that acknowledgement also, and it should be definitely should be a part of your working paper. See, without management representation letter, don't close the branch audit report. I mean, it should be a part of your mandatory audit program and a mandatory audit documentation. Sometimes, as a central auditors, to assist our colleagues in the branch, we also prescribe in the particular closing circulars also. But it depends on each bank's policy. But as a branch auditor, you should definitely take the management representation letter from the branch. I mean, it should be one of the prime documents you should be having as a part of our audit documentation. And it could be helpful if someone is going through peer review also, it would be helpful as a part of your peer review documentation also.
Right, sir. Anyone having any question, doubt? Okay, sir. I guess doubts are being discussed and you briefed it really nice. So I guess there is no question. So thank you, sir. Thank you, Rajan sir, for coming to our CP study circle. And though we couldn't hear you physically, but due to this road show and all that, but then you came, you delivered the lecture virtually to our CP study circle at very short notice. So I am really we from Gandhinagar CP study circle, we are really thankful to you for coming at such a short notice. And it was very nice to hear you after like a very long time and to see you over a virtual platform. So it is really pleasant to see you, sir, and hope to see you soon physically, as well as like whenever you are coming down to Gandhinagar side. So we'll definitely arrange some physical seminars of yours also, and we'll meet also, like if you are comfortable whenever you are in Gandhinagar, sir. With this brief, I thank you for coming, for giving us the opportunity at Gandhinagar CP Study Circle to hear you and providing us and enriching us with your knowledge, sir. Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, sir. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Now I would request Hitesh, sir. Are you there, sir?
Yes, yes. Yes, I am here.
Okay, sir. Good afternoon, Hitesh, sir, and welcome, Hitesh, sir, for coming to our Gandhinagar CP Study Circle. as such, Hiteshભાઈ is the faculty. એટલે આમ તો મેં એમને કીધું મેં સર તમારું કોઈ પ્રોફાઇલ સીવી એમ એટલે મને કે યાર મારે પ્રોફાઇલ સીવી તો ગાંધીનગરમાં આપવું પડે છે
કઈ
તો
નહીં
કે
કોઈ પ્રોફાઇલ નહીં બધું આપણે બધા ચાર્ટર્ડ એકાઉન્ટન્ટ મિત્રો જ છીએ બસ.
યસ સર એટલે બધા આપણે બધા જાણીએ જ છીએ હિતેશ સર ને અને એમનો એક ખાલી કદાચ બીજો એક પરિચય આપવો હોય તો હી ઇઝ ઓલવેઝ અવેલેબલ એમ ક્યારે એમના માટે થઈને person, gem of a friend, and very good. Hitesh Komal sir to take the charge of the session and give us the enrich us with his knowledge on branch audit. Over to you, Hitesh sir.
Thank you very much, Chintan, my dear friend. Thank you very much, Gandhi CP Study Circle, for inviting me today. આમ તો આવવાનું ફિઝિકલ જ હતું. I was about to start, but unfortunately આજે આપણે આ સ્ક્રીન ઉપર જ મળવાનું થયું એવું થયું. And Rajanbhai, I was listening to Rajanbhai. Rajanbhai has exhaustively covered the entire areas and which are really in true sense the practical aspects of the bank branch audit basically. See, before I come to the subject, one of the issue and one of the development that I would definitely like to bring it to the notice of the members also is that as we all know that after the merger of the nationalized banks, I am audible, no Chintan?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So after the merger of the nationalized banks, and now the number of branches have reduced drastically, and number two, the requirement for the bank branch audit, the criteria that has also been changed by the RBI, and now it is 90% of the advances are to be covered under the audit. That is the criteria. And the recent development is that they may reduce the same also in the near future. But yesterday I got the opportunity to listen to the Prime Minister and Prime President and Vice President of our institute, Dr. C.A. Debashish Mitra sir and Aniket Talati sir actually. And in that they have discussed that they met the Deputy Governor of the Reserve Bank of India for this also, that what type of opportunities are available for the members of our fraternity, that they can explore the same in the banking and financial institutions. The most important outcome of that meeting was that yesterday categorically President Sir has requested the members, and they have insisted that chartered accountants, those who are doing the bank branch audit, basically statutory bank branch audit, they will have to improve the quality of the audit to the core. That is very, 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 very must. Why? Because that since we all know that all the banks, even during the pandemic period also, we have seen that now it is very much easier for all of us also to interact through this Zoom meeting and everything. And since all the banks are under the automation, this thing, so sitting at the Bombay, one can very well verify the records of the Ladakh Leh branch also. So to continue the audit, if at all this branch audit has to be in relevance, basically the responsibility is on us, that is chartered accountants members, those who are doing the bank branch audit, to add the value to the audit basically. So the main thrust was on the quality aspect only. Quality and quality. Otherwise, in my personal opinion, this is again my personal opinion at the cost of repetition, that I don't see much future with the statutory bank branch audit. So far as the statutory bank branch audit is concerned, the opportunities are reducing at the faster pace, right? So my humble request to the members again on behalf of our institute also, that please try to add the value to the audit, right? Then and only then it will be beneficial for all of us, basically. Otherwise, I don't see much opportunity with the bank branch audit. So far as the main bank branch audit is concerned, though enormous opportunities are there for the chartered accountants from banking side also, right? But this is now sinking, it seems, prima facie. And so far as coming to the subject allotted to me, which I have to discuss and deliberate with all of you, is about the most important part of the balance sheet of bank branch audit is the advances and the non-performing asset, that is NPA. So kindly permit me to share my presentation also. This is visible, right? દેખાય છે ને? Hello, Chintan? Hello? દેખાય છે ને? Okay.
Yes.
So I will be discussing some most important issues about the advances and NPA, right? And in which throughout my presentation, I will try to cover the most important and relevant aspect of the advances, what needs to be taken care of so far as the review or audit of the advances and NPA. I will not go into the greater details about the terminology used at the branch level so far as the advances are concerned. I will briefly touch upon, because everyone knows what is advances and what is funded types of advances like that, right? But to begin with, yes, see what are the coverage under the advances which I am going to discuss is about the type of advances, then type of advances, checklist for checklist for review of advances, selection of samples. It will not be practically possible for any of the chartered accountant member who will be visiting branch to verify and to audit each and every accounts of the branch. So the art, one has to learn the art of selection of samples. I definitely discuss the same in the little greater detail rather. Then the review of important reports, then documentation which are of utmost importance, and the other key points, which includes the important terminology and the clarification from the Reserve Bank of India during this financial year, and which is most important for the audit of branches for the year 21-22. As we all know that there are two types of advances. Basically, one is funded loans and second is the non-fund based loans. So in funded loans, the term loan, cash credit, overdraft, funded interest term loans and demand loans. These are the major advances under the funded loans. In non-funded loans, actually the letter of credit, bank guarantee and bill discounting. બરાબર, આપણને આ બધી ટર્મિનોલોજી ખબર છે, એટલે આની ડેફિનેશન આપણે અત્યારે આ પ્રેઝન્ટેશનમાં ડિસ્કસ કરતા નથી. કોઈને કોઈ પણ ડાઉટ હોય તો આપણે લેટર ઓન ક્વેશ્ચન આન્સર સેશનમાં એને એડ્રેસ ડેફિનેટલી કરીશું. ને એના પછી છે ચેકલિસ્ટ ફોર રિવ્યુ ઓફ એડવાન્સીસ. એઝ એન ઓડિટર, at the time of review of the advances, one has to take care of this important aspect. And as I told you, selection of sample is really very important. As we all know, the general audit procedures related to advances, that includes what? As Rajan Bhai has discussed while discussing the requirements for reporting under LFR, right? So first and foremost is the appraisal of any borrower account. Then comes the sanction, then comes the document disbursement, then comes the documentation, and the after that the post disbursement process, right? One should understand that these 5 are the major pillars for verification and for which we are expected to reply in the LFRA. LFAR, sorry, LFR, LFAR, right? And selection of sample. Second is compliance of RBI norms and bank policy. So far as the bank loan policies is concerned, it is already there, approved by the board of directors, approved by the highest authority of the bank. That is very well there in the branch itself, in the soft copy format, right? One can ask wherever any doubt is there or doubt raised in the minds of the member, right? They can very well ask for the loan policy of the bank also. Compliance is of the RBI is concerned, I would like to discuss about the new master circular for IRAC norms. Now, income recognition and asset classification. Now, the IRAC norms that what we usually say is been changed to IRACP norms. That is income recognition, asset classification, and provisioning norms. The RBI came up with the master circular, which was last revised in the year, published in the year July 2015, 1st July 2015. But for this financial year, now RBI has come up with the new master circulars rather, on IRACP norms. And that is dated 1st October 2020. First, make sure that two things should be available at the time when we are visiting the office, either in soft copy or in the hard copy, right? That is, one is our guidance note on bank audit, and second is the master circular. That is very, very important and very relevant, right? As we all know, the importance of sanction letter, since RBI, since the banks have come up with the many innovative products for their advances portfolio, right? Whatever is the sanction for a particular borrower, be it overdraft facility, be it term loan or cash credit, or whatever is the sanction facility, one has to verify and one has to see and to have a look at the sanction letter and the most important terms and conditions, whether the same is complied with that or not. Second important is the track record of the customer or credit rating wherever it is possible, right? Track record of the customer with the bank, since when he is banking with the bank, that is also equally important. Authorization level and authorization limit, who can sanction up to what limit, right? One has the knowledge about that too. And second thing, wherever the branch incumbent has exceeded his power, whether the same is being ratified by the higher ups or not, that also needs to be seen. This type of issues arises when any special sanction or special overdraft or કોઈ એવી શોર્ટ ટર્મ લોન છે, એડોક લિમિટ આપણે સેન્કશન કરેલી હોય, તો એ માટેની એમનો પાવર છે નથી, નંબર ઓફ ટાઈમ્સ કરી શકે, એ આપણે ખાસ વેરીફાઈ કરવું જોઈએ. અને એના પછી વેધર હાયર અપ સેઝ મીન્સ કે રેટિફાઈ ઇટ ઓર નોટ, that is also required to be seen. Now the parameters of interest and penalties in sanction letters, કયા પ્રકારનો interest rate છે, fixed rate છે, flexible rate છે, અને કયા interval એના MCLR કે MLR માં ફેરફાર થયો છે, whether it is appropriately recorded in the system or not. Generally, the same is being done at the central office level, but at the time of verification of a particular advance account, right? Particularly, one should ensure himself that yes, the same is being properly taken care by the system. Review of advance on the regular intervals being done by the bank branch or not, whether the branch officials are visiting the unit, what are their reporting actually, that also we need to see. Value of securities, that is very important, and more important when the account turns the NPA, or we can say that it slips to the SMA categories also. As we all know, what is SMA? SMA is the special mention accounts, which we are going to discuss in this presentation too. Creation of charges on security, that is very, very vital. And in case of revolving facilities, that is case credit or overdraft, if the case credit is against the hypothecation of stock and book debt, right? One need to see the drawing power available with the bank. It is not like that, that sanction limit is 100 rupees, but drawing power is 70 rupees. One can utilize up to 70 rupees only. So that is the relevance of the drawing power. I am not going into detail. We'll definitely keep half an hour for the discussion or question answer related to audit, and we'll try to address the issues raised by the members during the last session. Suppose in your branch, the consortium advances are there, right? So one has to see the terms of the consortium advances also. Who are the lead banker? Whether the consortium finance meeting is being called for at regular intervals, and what are the minutes of the consortium finance meeting, and whether the same is being appropriately implemented by the branch or not. Then stock audit or physical verification. As we all know that if the sanction limit or the exposure is more than 5 crore rupees for the borrower who are enjoying the cash credit facilities with the bank, with the branch, right? The stock to carry out the stock audit is mandatory by the branch, right? And whether the physical verification of stock or book debt is being conducted by either external agency or by the bank branch officers, one need to verify that also. Credit summation against the interest debited. So I want to discuss the same because it is the very important change and relevant change during this financial year. Why this master circular and the clarification then after that I am not discussing right away. I will discussing when the appropriate slide comes for the discussion. Valuation of security we have discussed, and in case of the fraud, whether the ad hoc provision is being made by the bank or not. Once the fraud is detected, then 100% provision is required to be made. If it is related to advances, it will form part of your advances verification, or if it is other than advances, then it will form part of your balance sheet verification. So I told you about the selection of sample, why this is art, right? Because it is practically not possible to check each and every account at the branch, number wise and amount wise. However, our responsibility is to complete the audit in efficient manner and effective manner and in timely manner. One should have the sample selected by the before the commencement of the audit. Now the point is that how to select the sample. My suggestion would be that at the time when you are allotted the branch and your first interaction with the branch incumbent, obviously over telephone, just to inquire about the what is the advances at the branch as on the particular date, so as to understand what fees we are going to get, that is fine. But to understand the business metrics of the branch, you should have the list of the name and outstanding list of all the advances accounts, and you should first emphasis on the verification of new sanctions during the year. And even then also the disbursement, in my opinion, if the disbursement is made within last 15 days or fortnight before the end of the financial year, one should look at the same in a greater detail with respect to appraisal, sanction, disbursement, documentation, and post documentation. Post disbursement also. Second is that RBI generally, after the audit of the statutory branch audit, RBI generally conducts the risk focus bank in RBI risk-based audit in the bank. Now, generally, since last 4-5 years, what is observed, obviously that was of the COVID, because of the COVID too. But the RBI officials are not visiting the branch. They can sort for the information sitting at the head office, and they can review relevant information, relevant advances pertaining to the branch. But whether any adversely commented account is there by the Reserve Bank of India, one should take care of that that thing also, and should select the said account as in their sampling also. If the branch is under the concurrent audit, my suggestion would be to review at least last 4, 5, 6 months concurrent audit report. Any advance account which are regularly irregular that you find in the concurrent audit report, you should select that also. And most important, and I always say, and I must have told to the Gandhinagar members also whenever I came for the discussion about the bank branch audit, that according to me, in my opinion, and practically also I have observed that banks internal inspection audit, that is what we often call RAFIA, risk focus internal audit by the internal staff of the bank, right? If, say for example, you are allotted the Gandhinagar branch of the State Bank of India, and when you are visiting, your first question should be that whether the RAFIA is being conducted during the year or not. And if the risk focused internal audit is being done at the branch, ideally the coverage, each branch has to be under the RAFIA within 3 months, 3 years. Every 3 years, the RAFIA audit is conducted by the internal inspection department of the bank also. And that covers the entire financial statement, including advances, deposit, and everything is covered under this. Right? And if you are lucky and RAFIA is conducted during the year or later half of that financial year, that is 21-22, believe me, your 50% work is completed there and then only. Right? Then LFAR reporting requirement. Now, as we all know that since last year, the LFAR has undergone the changes and the regulators are expecting a lot more things to report in LFAR of the branch even. Right? So we have to comply with that requirement also, wherein it is mentioned that, for example, in case of large advances, 10% of the total advances, if in a particular borrower account, if the exposure is more than 10% of the total exposure. Say for example, મારું પોતાનું account ત્યાં છે, એમાં 100 rupees નું finance મેં avail કરેલું છે અને bank નું total finance છે 800 rupees નું છે. બરાબર, તો it is obviously more than 10%. That account we need to see. And for that, fund base and non-fund base, both exposure is to be taken into consideration. Or rupees 10 crores. It means if it is less than 10% of the total exposure, however, it is more than 10 crores. So it is very simple that any account having exposure of more than 10 crore should be part of your sample selection also. Top and large exposure accounts, SMA 1 and SMA 2, or project where the implementation is delayed. If in your branch any accounts wherein the exposure is there for the infra or non-infra project, and if the project implementation got delayed, right, obviously there are so many reasons. And one most important is this COVID-19 pandemic. And if the project implementation is delayed, my humble request is that please go through the same in the greater detail with the help of our institute guidance note. Institute guidance note on this aspect is really very exhaustive. One should have a look at it also. SMA 1 and SMA 2, we are discussing. What is SMA? That we are discussing little later. Restructured account. Friends, restructuring is happened in most of the accounts. I repeat, most of the accounts because of this COVID-19 pandemic. Before that, due to stress in the MSME sector, RBI had come up with the forbearances through their various circulars, right, wherein the one-time restructuring is permitted to those accounts wherein they were hit by the because of the pandemic or any other economic reasons, right? So restructured account, ideally as per the guidelines of the Reserve Bank of India, as explained in the master circular, any account, if under normal circumstances is restructured, that account has to be immediately downgraded to NPA. But however, due to these reasons which I explained, the RBI for various industries and various segment of the industries, rather, they have come up with the explanation, come up with the directives that one-time restructuring is permitted without classifying the account as the NPA. Right? I will definitely discuss those 4-5 circulars which are very relevant for this year audit and which has the impact on this restructuring account treatment. List of unsecured exposure, in my opinion, if it is more than 1 crore. Now when the banks are coming up with the many innovative products, for example, loan against property is permitted, but though it is a loan for a fixed tenure of say 3 years or 5 years, right? But the operation in the account is permitted as if it is the cash credit or overdraft account, right? We are discussing the same also. Quick mortality cases is the cases wherein the account slips to NPA within 12 months of the first disbursement of the in the account. So one should have the list of the quick mortality cases, and all these things are generated through system only. Branch manager or any of the officer will not have to waste his time in writing those reports basically, because it is already there in the system and these are the system generated reports. Fine. One more issue is about the accounts upgraded during the year. So what care to be taken while reviewing the accounts which are upgraded from NPA to performing assets during the year, we will be discussing while we are deliberating on the IRAC norms. Right. So on this, according to me, on this basis, we can select the simple, and I am sure that the adequate coverage will be there, and you will be in a position to opine. Ek second, please, excuse me. Sorry, friends. So before starting the review, following are the important reports which I have explained also, and that is reported in these slides too, that these are very important reports which you should review before commencing the audit for the advances. That is, one is the previous year's audit report. 2021 audit report, that is statutory audit report. You should review the audit report, whether any important comment is there by the branch auditor of previous year, then reporting of under the LFAR, right? Whether the any crucial remark is there which will have or which may have impact on the financials of the current year for a particular borrower or the advances basically, that you should review. Then latest internal inspection report I have discussed. Latest inspection report of RBI also I have discussed. Concurrent audit, if the branch is under concurrent audit report, I suggested to have a look at all the concurrent audit report. If not, then more importantly, the last few months audit report on, and if time permits, you should meet the concurrent auditor of the branch. He is also our professional brother, to understand the functioning of the branch for 10 minutes for a cup of tea. I would advise, and I generally have the practice, that whenever I am visiting the branch, I used to meet the concurrent auditor so as to have the idea about the overall functioning of the branch. Report on the verification of security. Then any other internal reports, if any other internal reports or correspondence is there specifically related to the particular account, you should have to review that too. Managers charge handing over report when incumbent is changed. આપણે ઘણી વખત જોઈએ છે કે બ્રાન્ચમાં જઈએ ને ત્યારે મેનેજર એમ કહે છે કે સર હું તો હમણાં 2 મહિના પહેલા જ આવ્યો છું, મને તો આની કઈ ખબર જ નથી. મોસ્ટ ઓફ ધ ટાઈમ્સ આવો જ સવાલ આવે છે. પણ મેનેજમેન્ટ જ્યારે ચેન્જ થાય, જ્યારે મેનેજર ચેન્જ થાય ત્યારે ચાર્જ હેન્ડિંગ ઓવર રિપોર્ટ છે બનાવવાનો હોય, અને એ ચાર્જ હેન્ડિંગ રિપોર્ટ છે એ નવા ઇન્કમ્બન્ટને આપતા જવાનો હોય, and you have the access to that also if the transfer is there, and if you think that it is required, you can very well discuss with the management or a manager, and then you can proceed. Documentation, I think mostly it is covered when you have discussed with the Rajan Bhai about the requirement under LFAR. But I will briefly touch upon some of the documents which are most important They are the important parameters, right? That is, one is the latest sanction letter or restructuring sanction letter or consortium sanction letter. Second is the OTS related document. Any one-time settlement is done in particular account by the branch higher authority. Then in that case, you should have the OTS related documents which is being agreed upon by the by the borrower also, right? Then consortium meeting minutes, right? If the account is under consortium, that you should have look at the consortium meeting minutes of the consortium meeting too. And if your branch or your bank is not the lead bank in that consortium arrangement, in that case, and you are the participating bank, then in that case, we should have the lead bank certificate from the lead bankers also, that the conduct of the account in their bank is satisfactory, right? Then technical viability certificate, bank stock audit report, valuation of stock and debtors as certified by the auditor. Bank stock audit report, that is, I told you in the initial discussion that when the exposure is more than 5 crore rupees, it is mandatory for the borrower to get stock audit done every year, right? And if the stock audit is allotted to chartered accountant or the internal department of the bank also, then in that case, you should have that available with you, and you should review it, and any adverse or critical major observations in that stock audit report should be addressed appropriately. Monthly stock statement for the year in case of working capital term loan, right? That is nothing but the stock statement. Title documents of prime and collateral security. That is very important. Why? Because that on the basis of the sanction, at the time of sanction only, the prime and collateral security is narrated in the sanction letter, and that has to be mortgage or hypothecated or pledged. Relevant documents are already there, and I am sure you must have verified at the time of the previous audit also. But that what I have observed, more particularly in case of State Bank of India, I don't know about the other banks, but I am told by the other auditors that now they have the separate premises to store the documents which are very, very important. And so the auditor or the branch auditor will be allotted a time slot to verify the documents related to a particular advance account, right? So you will have to visit that premises to verify the documents also. Or the most important, again, I'm sorry, that whether the documents are not old and it is enforceable, right? That is very much required to be seen. If it is more than 3 years old, then it is to be renewed also. Then mortgage register and entry of the security duly authorized. Deed of hypothecation in case of stock and book debts, the deed of hypothecation also needs to be seen, and whether it is signed and enforceable also. Details of the charge created or shifted as per NCA. Vetting letter. Then affidavits required as per the terms of sanction declaration of hedged or unhedged foreign currency. Sometimes in particular branch, we have to give the exposure for unhedged foreign currency by the statutory branch auditor also. But that is also very much required at the time when you are verifying the advance of a particular borrower. Standing instruction letter, credit rating document, and IOB internal rating document. Internal rating, it means not by the external agencies, but by the internal authority. Credit rating is also very much important in the sense, because in many of the cases, in most of the cases, I would say that the interest rate applicable to a particular borrower will be based on the credit rating, either external or internal. So latest credit audit, credit rating also is to be verified. And whether the appropriate rate as per the credit rating is applied in the particular account or not, that also needs to be seen. Then SI documents, so obviously that has to be there. Some more is about the balance confirmation from the customer. If any other documents are prescribed by the in the sanction letter terms and conditions, we have to see. I am not suggesting that we'll have to invest much more time into looking at all of this. The only point is, during your internal discussion or initial discussion only, you will come to the conclusion that whether the branch manager, branch officers are cooperative or not. And if any doubt arises, in one of my incidents, I will tell for the benefit of all of us, is that I inquired once upon a time in my sitting at the circle office of State Bank of India, that whether I want a report generated from the system wherein there is no credit for more than 90 days. મારે એક report જોઈએ. The CFO came to me because the instruction was very loud and clear from the management of the circle that whatever auditor asked, that is to route through CFO only. એટલે બ્રાન્ચમાં બી એવું હશે કે મેનેજમેન્ટ મેનેજર કે એના પછી તમને રિપોર્ટ આપે. અને એમણે મને એમ કહ્યું કે સર, why you want to review this? This is just a simple quarterly review. It is not the audit. મેં કહ્યું સર, બે ત્રણ વખત મેં ઇન્ક્વાયરી કરી, પણ છતાં એમણે મને પેલું નતું આપ્યું. એટલે મેં સાંજે એમને એમ કહ્યું કે સર, મારે મેં ડાયરેક્ટ CFO ને કહ્યું કે સર, I want this report wherein there is no credit for more than 90 days. બરાબર. અને એને મને કહ્યું કે સર, તમારે એનું શું એટલે કામ છે, અત્યારે તો રિવ્યુ છે. મેં કહ્યું સર, I just want to touch that paper and I will give it back to you. But believe me friends, the very first account, બરાબર, casual manner માં મેં પૂછ્યું હતું ને, a very first account with the highest exposure, I found out from that report actually. I am not expert in computer, but I know how to get work done from the branch officials and how to get it reviewed or audited by my team members. મને એટલી જ સમજ છે. And you are also not expected to be the computer savvy in that sense. You should have that idea in your mind that what you want to ask and what document you are you require from the branch management, and you should learn the art that it should be given to you in timely manner, right? Then comes the where we were actually management representation letter. Then obtain management representation letter. Rajan bhai has discussed with all of you. I am not repeating the same. Obtain the relevant document, details, certificate, etc. as part of your engagement documentation in terms of SA 230. Right? And for explanation, obtain from the branch management or any other fact matters, obtain a representation letter confirmation in terms of SA 580. Friends, મારો સબ્જેક્ટમાં આ ટોપિક નથી, પણ છતાંય હું મારા પ્રેક્ટિકલ એક્સપિરિયન્સથી એક વસ્તુ તમને સજેસ્ટ કરીશ કે હજી આજે આપણે 12th માર્ચના છીએ and we have to go to the branch on 3rd or 4th or 5th of the April. So we have got approximately 2 or 3 weeks time. બરાબર. તમે બીજું કઈ ના કરો, તમારા ટીમ મેમ્બરને ખાલી બેંક બ્રાન્ચ ઓડિટની ગાઈડન્સ નોટ જે છે એનો રેલેવન્ટ પેરાજ વાંચવા માટેનું ગાઈડન્સ આપો અડધો કલાક. અને I am sure sir કે well planning is half done. You should give your 50% or 60% of the time in audit planning and preparation of checklist. Right? Last time also I am sure I have discussed at the Gandhinagar that is very, very appropriate. You need not have to take any other documents from the bank except this checklist if it is appropriately filled up. And that will be more filled up at the time for making your opinion about the health of the advance, and then under reporting under the LFIR also. My humble request is that before visiting branch, right, you should have your entire file ready with all respect, including checklist. So in other points, I have covered these frequent MOCs which are being reported by the auditors. And I am telling you that I had already discussed with you, all of you, that what types of mistake the branch auditors are committing at the time of preparing the MOCs. And again, at the cost of repetition, I am suggesting કે તમે એડવાન્સીસ વેરિફિકેશન, બેલેન્સ શીટ, પ્રોફિટ એન્ડ લોસ, LFIR રિપોર્ટિંગ, આ બધામાં તમારા ટીમ મેમ્બરનો તમે ટ્રસ્ટ કરી શકો. પણ મારી તમને હમ્બલ રિક્વેસ્ટ છે કે જ્યારે તમે MOC બનાવો અગર કોઈ પણ એમઓસી છે, મટીરિયલ એમઓસી છે અથવા એસેટ ક્લાસિફિકેશનના ચેન્જીસ છે, તો એ એમઓસી હંમેશા જાતે બનાવજો. અને મેમોરેન્ડમ ઓફ ચેન્જીસ ફોર્મેટ ઇઝ પ્રિપેર્ડ by the management of the bank in consultation with the statutory central auditors. And believe me, each and every row and column, each and every column of the MOC is important and it has its own relevance. For paucity of time, I will not discuss that in detail, but whoever wants to discuss the same with me, they can contact me personally also. Definitely, I will discuss with them. These are the main. I'll be sharing this presentation through Gandhinagar CP Study Circle. So these are the most important MOCs which we have always seen. A change in date of NPA. March 2022 is not the date of NPA. Exact date of NPA is very, very crucial, and RBI once again in this year only have come up with the direction about the date of NPA. Why it is important? આપણને પહેલા એવું હતું ને કે મંથ એન્ડ હોય ને એ જ NPA નો ડેટ હોય, એમાં જ 90 ડેઝ પૂરા થાય. હવે એવું નથી હોતું, હવે એનિવર્સરી ડેટ હોય કે માની લો કે મેં મારી હાઉસિંગ લોન 5th of month લીધી છે, 5th of particular month, તો મારો ઇન્સ્ટોલમેન્ટ અને ઇન્ટરેસ્ટ છે 5th of next month જ ડ્યુ થાય. તો 90 days મારે 5th થી સ્ટાર્ટ કરીને ગણવા પડે. So that is the reason date of NPA is very, very important and crucial. Second is addition to NPS. During your audit, if you come across the cases wherein in your opinion the account has to be classified as NPA, right? You will have to give the MOC for that. One second. Addition to NPAs identified as fraud. As I had discussed, that if you find in any account the account is fraud for whatsoever reason, the reasons also are mentioned in the red flag accounts portion of the guidance note 2, right? Then that is to be any fraud related to advances. કોઈ પણ fraud advances માં થાય તો એનું reporting advances ની MOC માં આવે જ. That is very much required. Change in the status of NPA because of the aging and all from substandard to doubtful and doubtful 2, right? That is also attracts the MOC. Change in the security valuation. Friends, in case of NPA accounts, we will be discussing when we are discussing IRAC norms, what is the importance of the valuation of security. Apportioning of the common security available to all the credit facilities in case of group accounts. Right, that is એટલે કયા account ની સામે કેટલી security આપેલી છે એ પણ important છે જે આપણે check કરવાનું થાય. અને detail in deduction column ECGC and CGT MSC આપણને ખબર જ છે કે because of the COVID government જે emergency credit line extend કરી in the year 2021, right? So the accounts which are financed under that scheme will be covered under this, because hello.
You are audible, sir. You are audible.
Okay, નહીં પાવર કટ થયો ને એટલે મેં કીધું કઈ થયું નથી ને મારા લેપટોપમાં ચાલુ છે.
ના ચાલુ જ છે સર.
Okay. Change in the provisioning in particular account, that is very much required because of the age again, if or the deterioration of the security valuation. If the provision is increasing and the branch is not appropriately increase the provision, we'll have to give the MOC for the same, right? So these are the most important MOCs which for giving the MOC for this type of mistakes, no materiality is there. even for 500 rupees also, if any account is downgraded, there is no materiality level. રાજનભાઈએ કહ્યું કે ભાઈ બાકી બધા માટે થઈને materiality level respective banks એમના criteria માં and in consultation with the central statutory auditors, they have defined. That is fine. But so far as the classification and the health of the account is concerned, if any MOC is there, it has to pass through MOC only. Simple. Then next is, once you are done with the verification of borrower files, at the end, as we all know, that most of the banks have the separate software for the reporting of the advances. But ultimately, that software totals has to match with the general ledger balance of the particular branch, what you are visiting at the regular. દરરોજ કરવું પડે, પણ at the year end 31st March, as per the balance sheet, total advances has to match with the advances certificates which we are signing, right? And reports generated through advanced software also, that is to match in all respect. Then ensure that all the collateral properties have been valued once in 3 years, and that too particularly in case of NPA accounts, it is very, very relevant. In most of the NPA accounts, the primary securities consisting of either book debts or hypothecated goods also, right? It should be ignored. I am telling you, it should be ignored unless the same is being backed by the recent stock audit or book debt statement. ઘણી વખત શું થાય છે કે એકાઉન્ટ NPA થઈ ગયું એટલે છેલ્લું સ્ટોક સ્ટેટમેન્ટ આપ્યું હોય ને એટલું જ સ્ટોકમાં રહીને કન્સિડર કરે. પછી બ્રાન્ચ મેનેજર આપણી જોડે આર્ગ્યુમેન્ટ કરે કે સર અમે એનો ડીપી તો 0 કરી નાખ્યો, પણ સ્ટોક તો મારી પાસે છે જ ને. આઈ એમ ધી ઓનર, ધેટ ઇઝ ધ પ્રાઇમરી સિક્યોરિટી. તો મારે એને વેલ્યુ, મારે પ્રોવિઝનિંગ કરવામાં એ સ્ટોકને તો સિક્યોર્ડ સ્ટોક તરીકે, સિક્યોર્ડ પ્રોપર્ટી તરીકે જ લેવો પડે. માય આન્સર ઇઝ નો. My answer is no, unless and until a special stock audit or any book debt audit is being allotted and you have received the report. તમે immovable property માં 3 વર્ષનું valuation હોય તો ચાલે. But so far as the stock is concerned or book debt is concerned, either it is perishable or it is not recoverable. You should not consider the same as the part of the primary security. Review provisioning gaps pointed out by the branch auditors in the previous year as per the MOC and LFAR. મેં પહેલા જ કહ્યું કે MOC અને LFAR નું સ્ટડી કરી લેવાનું, અને લાસ્ટ યરના ઓડિટરે આપેલી MOC ની ઇફેક્ટ કરન્ટ યરમાં બ્રાન્ચમાં પડી ગઈ છે ને, એ ખાસ વેરીફાઈ કરી, અને it should form part of your audit documentation file also. Now the most important, and everybody is interested to understand this new IRACP norms, I'll be discussing, but before that, let me have a glass of water. To be very honest, friends, તમને કહું ને તો હું આખા વર્ષમાં બેંક બ્રાન્ચ ઓડિટ સિવાય કોઈ પણ સબ્જેક્ટ ઉપર બોલતો નથી, ને એવું બી ધારી શકાય કે મને બીજું કંઈ આવડતું બી નથી. પણ તકલીફ ત્યાં થઈ છે કે ટુડે ઇઝ ધ ફર્સ્ટ ડે. આજ સવારે મેં CA એસોસિએશનમાં લેક્ચર લીધું, અને હું કાલ રાત્રે 2 વાગે અમે ત્યાં ઓરિએન્ટેશનમાંથી આવ્યા, અને અત્યારે આ બીજું લેક્ચર છે. એટલે વર્ષ પછી આપણે લેતા હોય ને, એટલે પેલું કહીએ ને, રીધમ પકડાવવામાં બી થોડી વાર લાગે, એટલે થોડું તમને એવું લાગતું હશે ને. ધેટ વોઝ ધ રીઝન કે મને એમ થયું કે હું 1 કલાક પહેલા ગાંધીનગરમાં જઈને બેસું તો રાજનભાઈને આજ સવારનું તો વર્ચ્યુઅલ જ કરવો પડ્યો. પ્રાઇમ મિનિસ્ટર સર આવ્યા છે ને, તો રોડ ક્લોઝર છે, પણ પછી આપણે બી આવી રીતે વર્ચ્યુઅલી જ મળવાનું થયું. And I hope everybody is listening. કારણ કે આમાં તકલીફ એ થાય છે કે કોણ મોબાઈલમાં છે અને કોણ સાંભળે છે એ ખબર ના પડે એમ. But I am sure that you are enjoying, એવું માનીને હું અત્યારે આગળ ચલાવું છું. With the promise that I will conclude the same in the time only. Yeah?
Yes, sir. We are enjoying, sir.
Thank you, dear. So, before, what is earlier, it was IRAC norms, income recognition, asset classification norms. Now, with the new master circular, as I have discussed, that from 1st October 2021, Reserve Bank of India has issued the new directions, master circular rather, related to the IRACP norms, which is including provisioning also. Income recognition, asset classification, and provisioning also. This is the key highlights basically, and this master circular consolidates the instructions, whatever instructions related to IRSCP norms issued by the branch, issued by the regulator up to 31st of September, 30th September 2021 is covered under this. અને તમારે બધા circular જોડે રાખવાની જરૂર નથી. આ એક જ circular ની અંદર બધી જ instructions છે. Right? So what are the highlights of this circular? This circular is in 4 parts basically, A, B, C and D. A is the income recognition and asset classification. Now in B there are 2 part. Basically B1 deals with the framework for resolution of stressed assets. It is very important since 2016-17 because of the demonetization. MSME sector took the worst hit basically, and at that time RBI came to their rescue, and that one-time restructuring was permitted. And after this Nirav Modi saga, even the resolution framework was separately issued in the year 2017, if I don't exactly remember the date, by the Reserve Bank of India. That deals that is also being dealt with by in the circular as a B1. B2 is prudential norms applicable to restructuring. After the demonetization, this COVID-19 pandemic, because of this COVID pandemic, the most of the industry and most of the economy took the hit, and that is the reason RBI under various circulars have permitted one-time restructuring. That also we will be discussing in due course of time basically. But that part B2 is related to prudential norms applicable to restructuring. C is miscellaneous, and D is the annexures which are relevant for part A, part B and part C. Part A covers this definition, income recognition and all. Now the most important, this slide is very important. Over and above the guidance note, what I told you, second one to be guidance note and master circular, and these 4 circular, these are of 2 to 3 pages only. That is very very relevant. હું એટલું જ અહીંયા ડિસ્કસ કરું છું કે જે બ્રાન્ચમાં પ્રેક્ટિકલી પોસિબલ છે, પ્રેક્ટિકલી જરૂરી છે to form an opinion about the financials of the branch. RBI came up with one circular on May 5, 2021, and subsequently with the clarification on June 4, 2021. That is the resolution framework 2. Resolution framework 1 came in the year 2017, but now this resolution framework 2 is the resolution of COVID-19 related stress of MSMEs. આપણે બધા જાણીએ છીએ કે MSME ની ડેફિનેશનમાં પણ વધારો થઈ ગયો, ઇન્વેસ્ટમેન્ટની ડેફિનેશનમાં, ટર્નઓવરની ડેફિનેશનમાં, ઇવન ધ હોલસેલ બિઝનેસ બી એમાં ઇન્ક્લુડ થયો, ટ્રેડિંગ બી એમાં ઇન્ક્લુડ થયું છે. આપણી પાસે નોટિફિકેશન છે જ. So RBI has come up with this new resolution framework that is very relevant for 21-22 audit. Though RBI came up with this circular on automation of IRSCP norms process in the year 2020, September 2020, right? But RBI had given the time to the banks for fully automation of the IRSCP norms by the bank to be completed by 30th June 2021, for which the compliance is also submitted by the bank to the Reserve Bank of India. So it means, we will be discussing that, but it means there will not be a single manual intervention in any of the advance account so far as it is related with the, so far it pertains to the IRSCP norms process, right? બધું જ computerized, તમારે કશું જ નહીં કરવાનું સિસ્ટમમાં. અને બેંક્સે compliance certificate RBI ને આપી દીધું છે. It means banks are geared up basically, right? And then November 12, 2021, there was a clarification on IRSE norms, that is with reference to specification of due date, repayment date, SMA and NPA, etc. That I have taken as my last slide basically because it is very important. And on February 12, again Reserve Bank came up with the out of order definition, clarification of out of order definition, that is what was mentioned in the master circular para number 2.1.3. Now friends, let us jump to our next this thing. What is NPA? In layman terms, any asset including a lease asset becomes non-performing when it ceases to generate income for the bank. Simple. જ્યાંથી આવક બંધ થઈ ગઈ, એકાઉન્ટિંગ એક્રુઅલમાં કરવાનું, કેસમાં આવતા બંધ થઈ જાય એટલે એકાઉન્ટ NPA. That is a layman terms. So what are the parameters to classify any facility as the NPA? That we all know because we are doing the bank audit since long. But to me, in my personal opinion, the most important and relevant for 21-22 will be the definition of out of order that I am discussing in the next slide. Because we all know 90 days in case of agriculture, 2 crop season, for short duration, and for long duration, it is 1 crop season. We should not give much time to this, right? Yes, now everyone, my request is that everyone should either read or listen to me, because I am reading the exact verbatim of this out of order status as per the new circular and new clarifications. First, as per the master circular dated October 1, 2021, out of order is the outstanding balance which remains continuously in excess of sanction limit or drawing power, whichever is less, for 90 days. So meaning thereby that if outstanding in a particular balance, outstanding in a particular advance is continuously in excess of either sanction limit or DP limit. Sanction limit, DP limit ક્યારે sanction limit થી વધારે ના હોય. The sanction limit is the highest. Say, for example, in particular case, the sanction limit is 100 rupees. And DP limit is, as per the stock statement submitted by the bank, it is 80 rupees. So if DP is 80 rupees, then the outstanding should not be more than 80 rupees continuously for more than 90 days. That is very simple. આપણે તો આટલું જ જોવાનું, સેન્કશન કેટલી 100 રૂપિયા, ડિસ્બર્સમેન્ટ કેટલું, ડીપી કેટલો 80 રૂપીસ. તો 80 થી ક્યારે વધુ બેલેન્સ? 90 ડેઝ થી વધ્યું છે તો એનપીએ પતિ. કશું વિચારવાનું નહીં. આઉટ ઓફ ઓર્ડર ની ડેફિનેશન માં આ સિમ્પલ લેમેન ની લેંગ્વેજ માં મેં તમને કહ્યું કે in cases where the outstanding balance in principal operating account is less than the sanction limit or DP limit, but a બીજી condition, but there are no credits continuously for 90 days as on the date of balance sheet. મેં આને પછી સ્ટ્રાઇક આઉટ કર્યું છે. શું કામ કર્યું છે? I will come to it later. But let us understand what is the second condition. That in cases where the outstanding balance in the principal operating account is less than sanction limit or drawing power limit, but there are no credit continuously for 90 days as on the date of balance. મારી sanction limit 100 રૂપિયા, drawing power મારો 80 rupees, આપણે અગાઉ એક્ઝામ્પલ લીધું. મારું outstanding છે 60 rupees. Hypothetically, if it is 60 rupees, and if during the 90 days time, barabar, the whatever is the interest charge, say for example for 3 months the interest charge is 3 rupees, meaning thereby my outstanding will increase from 60 to 63. Even then the same is less than sanction or DP limit, barabar. But if the credit is not sufficient, પણ મેં એમાં 1 જ રૂપિયો જમા કરાયો, so it means that credit is not sufficient, અથવા મેં કશું જ ના કરાયું, so there is no credit continuously for 90 days, right? Irrespective of the fact that the limit is within the DP limit, that account is NPA. હવે મેં સ્ટ્રાઇક આઉટ એટલા માટે કર્યું કે માસ્ટર સર્ક્યુલર ની અંદર it was explained that as on the date of the balance sheet. હવે આ પર્ટિક્યુલર ડેફિનેશન ની અમે સેન્ટ્રલ લેવલે આ બહુ જ ઓબ્ઝર્વ કર્યું છે કે આ માસ્ટર સર્ક્યુલરના આ ડાયરેક્ટિવ્સ ને ધ્યાનમાં લઈ અને એને બેઝ બનાવીને બેંક આપણી જોડે આર્ગ્યુમેન્ટ કરે કે હિતેશભાઈ, in this particular account, though the limit outstanding was within the limit, however that was not as on the balance sheet date. 31 March word હતો balance sheet date, and balance sheet date is 31st March of a year, બરાબર. એટલે માની લો કે જૂન થી સપ્ટેમ્બર માં એકાઉન્ટ એનપીએ થયું, તો મારું બેલેન્સ શીટ ડેટ માં નથી. બરાબર. તો જો બેલેન્સ શીટ ડેટ ને ના હોય તો જ તમારે આને કન્સિડર કરવાનું. એટલે તમે જૂન થી સપ્ટેમ્બરમાં કન્સિડર નહીં કરવા, because the word was 90 days as on the date of balance sheet. So RBI came up with the very next circular on 15th of February, clarifying the fact that now it is to be in line with the other facilities definition only. So it meaning thereby that wherever the credit is not there or insufficient credit is there in case of any of the account continuously for 90 days, right, these accounts should be treated as out of order. એટલે બેલેન્સ શીટ વાળો કન્સેપ્ટ નીકળી. હવે માની લો કે જુલાઈ થી સપ્ટેમ્બરમાં પણ જો તમારે 90 days માં ક્રેડિટ ના આવી, even after knowing the fact that the outstanding is less than sanction or DP limit, then also the account is out of order. Clarification એમ આવ્યું કે if the CC or overdraft remains continuously in excess of sanction limit or drawing power, and if the outstanding is less than what we have discussed. Now third is very important. This is applicable to all loan products of overdraft, including those not meant for business purposes and or which entail interest repayment as the only credit. હું તમને કહું આ પ્રેઝન્ટેશનમાં આ પ્રેક્ટિકલ એક્ઝામ્પલ બનાવવાનો હતો, પણ મને આ દોડાદોડીના કારણે હું નથી કરી શક્યો, but this is very crucial. Why? Because હવે આપણે જાણીએ છીએ કે બેંકો એવી પ્રોડક્ટ લઈને આવ્યા છે, આપણને ફોન બી આવતા હશે, મેસેજ બી આવતા હશે કે સર, you being a qualified chartered accountant, our bank has come up with the new product, namely unsecured business loan to the chartered accountants. Only on the basis of your ITR file, we will give you the unsecured business loan. For whatever purpose you want to utilize, you can utilize and enjoy the limit. Right? You need not have to submit any stock statement or no hypothecation or no this thing. So in that case, the account is unsecured. Number one. Now the second is that new, again, in that product only, the new નવું એ લાયા છે કે sir, you can utilize up to 20 lakhs of rupees wherever you want to utilize. However, the total tenure of the loan will be 3 years or 6 months, 6 years, whatever you prefer. બરાબર. પણ મને 20 લાખ આજે આપ્યા અને કાલે મેં એમાંથી 20 વિથડ્રો કર્યા અને મને કાલે કોકે 10 લાખ મારી ફી આવી અને મેં ચૂકવી દીધી, તો મને કેશ ક્રેડિટ જેટલું ઇન્ટરેસ્ટ લાગશે. હવે આમાં એક ક્રુશિયલ ક્વેશ્ચન એ થાય કે whether under in that type of innovative products, which IRA formula applicable to term loan or applicable to cash credit will be applied. You got my point. What I mean to say is that there is no equal monthly installment, right? But you have to enjoy this limit up to 3 years. બરાબર. તમારો reducing balance તમારી DP કરતા જાય, જે આપણું repayment schedule હોય, but you need not have to repay. Then in that case also, right, if I have utilized 20 lakhs of rupees, I deposited 10 lakhs rupees, still balance is 10 lakhs, I have the facility up to, I can utilize up to next 10 lakhs rupees. But હું મારા ઓડિટના અસાઇનમેન્ટમાં ફોરેન જતો રહ્યો, and I did not utilize those accounts that they were lying there only, and the bank has charged the interest continuously month on month basis, right? And when I returned from my tour, barabar, I came to know that 5-month interest is not paid, even though the limit, my outstanding is within the limit. Then in that case also, this rule applies. Or which will entail interest repayment as the only credit. પેલા કહે છે ને, મેં તમને જે એક્સપ્લેન કર્યું એ આવી ગયું એમાં, ત્યારે પણ આ યુનિટ, આ એપ્લિકેબલ આઉટ ઓફ ઓર્ડર નો ડેફિનેશન આમાં એપ્લિકેબલ થાય. એટલે એમ સાવ શુદ્ધ ગુજરાતીમાં એવું કહી દેવાનું કે 90 દિવસ સુધી ખાતામાં ઓપરેશન ના થાય, બરાબર, એટલે એકાઉન્ટ આઉટ ઓફ ઓર્ડર થાય. સિમ્પલ. બેલેન્સ લિમિટમાં છે, ઓવરડ્યુ છે, ઓવરડ્યુ હોય તો થઈ જ જાય. તો બેલેન્સ લિમિટમાં બી હોય, 90 દિવસ સુધી ક્રેડિટ ના હોય અથવા ક્રેડિટ સમેશન સફિશિયન્ટ ના હોય. સફિશિયન્ટ ક્રેડિટ સમેશન મીન્સ કે 3 વર્ષ 3 મહિનાનું જે ઇન્ટરેસ્ટ ચાર્જ થયું છે 3 રૂપિયા, એ જો ના હોય, then in that case it is out of order. હું આ સ્લાઇડને એક્સપ્લેન કરવામાં મને ખબર છે થોડી વાર લગાડું છું, એની પાછળનું ઇમ્પોર્ટન્ટ રીઝન એ છે કે આ વખતે because of the forbearance, બે જ વસ્તુ આપણે અગત્યની આવશે, જે આપણે છેલ્લે એક ચર્ચા કરીશું. પણ out of order ની definition માં થયેલો change will have a major impact on the bank branch audit. Second is 90 days period for determination of out of order status of a case credit or CC or OD account shall be inclusive of the day for which the day end process is being run. એક very interesting આ વખતની જર્નલમાં જે રાઇટ અપ આવ્યું છે ને એમાં મેં તમને કહ્યું કે આરબીઆઈ એ જે ઓટોમેશન નો સર્ક્યુલર સપ્ટેમ્બર 14 2020 એ જે સર્ક્યુલર કર્યો છે કે હવે આઈરાક નોમ્સની કોઈ પણ પ્રોસેસ ઓટોમેટેડ પ્રોસેસ હોવી જોઈએ, બરાબર. એમાં એક જ વસ્તુ એવી છે કે બેંક નો ડે એન્ડ પતે, આપણે કહીએ ને બ્રાન્ચમાં આપણે કહીએ છીએ તો નથી કહેતા કે ડે એન્ડ એક્ટિવિટી ચાલે છે, તો બેંક નો ડે એન્ડ પૂરો થાય એટલે એ એકાઉન્ટ ઓવરડ્યુ થઈ જાય if it is not regularized, and that is the importance of day end process. હવે એવું નહીં થાય કે મેં કહ્યું એમ કે 31st March or 30th June or 30th November will be the date of NPA, એવું નહીં થાય. હવે 5 તારીખે પણ 90 દિવસ પૂરા થાય તો છઠ્ઠી આઈડિયલી એવું જ હોય, પણ આ તો હવે રીઝન એવું આવ્યું કે સિન્સ ધી બેંક્સ આર ફ્લેક્સિબલ ઇન રિકોગ્નાઇઝિંગ ધી ઇન્ટરેસ્ટ, આપણને પૂછે છે કે ભાઈ હિતેશભાઈ તમારો સેલરી કઈ તારીખે થાય, 4th તારીખે, તમને કઈ તારીખ ઇન્સ્ટોલમેન્ટની કન્વીનિયન્ટ રહેશે, તો કે 5 તારીખ, તો 5 તારીખ, હું કહું 12 તારીખ તો 12 તારીખ, એનિવર્સરી ડેટ ઓર મંથલી રેસ્ટ, બરાબર. Now the specification of due date and repayment date. So again this is the circular dated somewhere in the month of November 21, precisely 12th November ame vachu, that any loan sanctioned after 31st December 21, હવે આપણે જ્યારે LFAR રિપોર્ટિંગ કરીએ અને સેન્કશન ટર્મ્સ વાંચીએ ત્યારે એગ્રીમેન્ટ ડોક્યુમેન્ટ્સ વેરીફાઈ કરીએ એટ ધેટ પોઈન્ટ ઓફ ટાઈમ આટલી વસ્તુની બોરોવરને ખબર હોવી જોઈએ, and it is expected of us also that should form part of the documentation too, that exact due dates for the repayment of loan, frequency of repayment, amortization between principal and interest, examples of special mention accounts and non-performing advances, classification, NPA classification dates, etc., to be specifically mentioned in the loan agreement. Borrower ne khabar hovi જોઈએ. આપણે શું થાય કે સેન્કશન થાય, સપોઝ for example on 5th of July 2021, disbursement happens in the month of August or September for some documentation clearance was not there. So after completing all the formality, first disbursement, and in the sanction letter dated 5th of July, it is mentioned that moratorium is for 6 months. But from when 6 months? From the date of first disbursement of that. But now everything has to be written and to be communicated to the borrower in a loan agreement also. So borrower to be appraised about the same and subsequent changes also. If there is any change in the interest rate too, that is to be informed to the borrower. That is obligatory on the part of the banks also. So in case of moratorium on principal and or interest, the exact date of commencement of repayment also to be mentioned in the agreement. Exact date of commencement of repayment. તમારે એને એગ્રીમેન્ટમાં કહેવું પડે કે 5 જુલાઈ 2021 નું સેન્કશન લેટર અને 3 ઓગસ્ટ 2021 ની સાલનું ફર્સ્ટ ડિસ્બર્સમેન્ટ, then your moratorium for 6 months for interest and or principal will ends on this and this date, that is 6 months after first disbursement, right? So this is related to the advances sanctioned after 31st December 2021. My suggestion would be that in your branch, if any loan is sanctioned during the last quarter of this financial year, right, you call for the copy of the agreement just to review it, or otherwise it will not have any financial impact on the balance sheet of the bank, right? But it is to be reported in the LFAR. It is expected to be reported in the LFAR. And for rest of the cases which are existing loans, compliance of all of the above conditions is to be complied with as and when such loans becomes due for the renew or review. એટલે આ હવે important reporting પેલું થઈ ગયું. So important terminology. Sorry, હું ફરીથી next slide માં જઉં છું. આ બધી requirement ને એ આવશે, મેં કહ્યું એમ કે કોઈ financial implications નહીં થાય. બરાબર? પણ since RBI regulators directives are there, as a statutory auditor you can very well ask for the system also, right? So these are again very important terminology so far as it relates to verification of advances, that is SMA, special mention accounts. As we all know that after the Nirav Modi saga, the RBI came up with this special mention account system basically to have the continuous monitor on the advances. So wherever the loans which are in nature of term loan, that is other than revolving facilities, it is obligatory on the banks to report the same as SMA 0, 1 and 2. How come? That if the interest in the term loan account is charged on a particular day, next day it will become overdue. So in case of term loan, if there is any overdue by 1 day up to 30 days, it is to be special mention advance 0, SMA 0 category. It is to be reported under SMA 0 category. Second, say on same line, if the overdue is more than 31 days up to 60 days, it is to be reported as SMA 1 and SMA 2, 61 and up to 90 days. On 90 days, it will slip to NPA. So as an auditor, my suggestion to you would be that whenever you are visiting bank, ask for the SMA on 31st, SMA 1 and 2. SMA 2 is very crucial for us as an auditor, so that we can check those accounts which are appeared in the SMA 2 with the greater details. But the thing is that you can ask for the SMA 1 and 2 basically for as on that is daily generated report actually, and it is a system generated reports, right? You can ask some foolish questions to the branch manager. કોઈ હેઝિટેશન કરવાનું જ નહીં. આપણે ક્યારે એવું નહીં વિચારવાનું કે એમણે એમ થશે કે અમને બેન્કિંગ ટર્મિનોલોજી જ ખબર નથી. હું હંમેશા જાઉં ત્યારે એમને એવું જ કહું છું કે ભાઈ તમે આ દરિયામાં જ રહો છો અને તમારે ડેઈલી આ જ કામ કરવાનું છે. બરાબર? અમને આ નથી ખબર હોતી તો મને ના ખ્યાલ હોય તો મને કહે સર મારે ઓલા ઓવરડ્યુ ના સ્ટેટમેન્ટ જોઈએ છે. And believe me, friends,
गानों में उनकी कीज अभी भी पता है.
Believe me, friends, these are the system generated reports only. એટલે બીજું કોઈ પણ પ્રકારનું મેન્યુઅલ ઇન્ટરવેન્શન નો પ્રશ્ન નહીં આવે. હા, એક્સેલ માં ટાઈપ કરેલું નહીં લેવાનું, but you should keep that as the part of your audit documentation. કોઈ SMA 2 હું તો બે લઉં છું, 31st March, 15th February અને 28th February.
तो गाड़ी कर देना तुम.
વિશાલ ભાઈ, hello. Achha, okay. So the loans, so these are SMA 0, 1 and 2 which we have discussed, and for loans of revolving facility, that is cash credit and overdraft, SMA 1 and 2, there is no SMA 0. Why? Because that in case of cash credit and overdraft account, the account will become overdue once it crosses 30 days. Right? So reporting under CC and OD account facilities, it is to be marked as SMA 1 if the overdue is more than 30 days up to 60 days, and SMA 2, that is 61 days and up to 90 days. Again, since the part of the automation of this, it is very clear that these SMAs to be flagged as overdue as part of day end process for the due date, irrespective of time of running such process. Bank ni branch સાંજના 6 વાગે day end process run કરે તો 6 વાગે, 7 વાગે, અને જો 8 વાગે રાતે 11 વાગે કરે તો 11 વાગે. That will be the irrespective of time of that, the same will be considered as the SE. It is applicable to all the loans, obviously, except agriculture advances, irrespective of size of exposure. 10,000 rupiah nu exposure, 10 crore nu exposure, it is applicable to all the loans, right? I think we have discussed this, that what is the classification of NPA in case of interest payments. There are some advanced products basically wherein only the interest payment is permitted, right? That is what we have discussed. And as per the master circular, the NPA master circular para number 1.3, that is NPA only if the interest due and charged during the year is not serviced fully within 90 days from the end of the quarter. 90 days from the end of the quarter, right? Which is in line with all the other provisions. Now it is clarified that it is all, if it is NPA, irrespective of quarter, it is overdue for more than 90 days, right? So any such account overdue on or after March 31, 22 is classified as NPA, shall be based on as per this qualification. So friends, for the year 21-22, we are guided by the master circular. So for any classification of NPA in case of term loan accounts wherein only the interest payment is to be made, we are guided by this para number 2.1.3. But for the next year, it will be as per this clarification, right? So now the second part of IRAC norms is income recognition, right? There are two types of income recognition, accrual and case. It is very simple. Everything on accrual basis except if the account is slipped to NPA, that is case basis, right? And these are the important issues. First is the reversal of income, and wherein I have, as a central statutory auditor, personally observed so many discrepancies in the MOCs given by the branch auditors that they never reverse the interest charge once the account slipped to NPA. Going by the example that if as on the date of 31st March 2022, the outstanding is 100 rupees, right? And for no payment of interest for more than 90 days, the auditor has classified the account as NPA. First MOC will be for the reversal of interest which is not paid during the 90 days time. So if in that example 100 rupees is the outstanding and 3 rupees is the interest charge during this 3 months time which is not paid by the borrower, first is we have to debit interest accrued account and reduce the advances. So that is your first MOC. That should be your first MOC. And second is the provisioning should only be on net amount, that is 97 rupees. And second clarification is that this will apply to central government guaranteed accounts also. Now the thing is that why it is central government guaranteed accounts are generally the large accounts, basically wherein the exposure is in the PSUs or anything like that, right? But however, since as we all know that government has come up with this emergency line of credit basically, barabar, so that due to this pandemic, obviously that accounts are covered under central government guarantee. In those accounts, if that account slipped to NPA, auditor need not classify the account as NPA. However, the interest which is not paid beyond 90 days time is to be reversed. ગણી લેવાનું કે account NPA થયું તો yes, કેટલું reversal થયું? મેં ગણાવ્યું 3 રૂપિયા reverse કરવું પડે. Central government guaranteed account need not be classified as NPA, as exempted under the master circular, master directions of the Reserve Bank of India. However, for income recognition, it is the case that it is should always be on the case basis. Next is appropriation of recovery in NPS, that interest realized on NPS may be taken into an income account provided the credits in the accounts where the interest are not out of fresh or additional credit facilities. મને મારું હાઉસિંગ લોન એકાઉન્ટ છે એ આઉટસ્ટેન્ડિંગ છે, ઓવરડ્યુ છે 90 days થી માય એકાઉન્ટ હેઝ ટુ સ્લીપ ટુ NPA. બ્રાન્ચ મેનેજર મને એક પર્સનલ લોન 50,000 રૂપિયાની સેન્કશન કરી આપે અને એ પૈસા મારા હાઉસિંગ લોનના એકાઉન્ટમાં એડજસ્ટ કરે, that is not acceptable. You have to reverse that. Then comes the income recognition in NPS. Banks to reverse interest already charged, which we have discussed, and stop further application of interest. That is very important. Interest not to be charged, it is to be parked in the memorandum account. It will not be the part of the profit and loss account. So now the income recognition policy for the loans with moratorium on payment of interest. Lending institutions, that is LIs, have to recognize the income on accrual basis for those accounts which are continue to be classified as standard. Same shall be evaluated as per the definition of restructuring, Master Circular this 2019, Prudential Framework for Resolution of Master Circular. The accounts which are in the standard category, irrespective of the fact, right, that if the same is as per the restructuring evaluated as per the definition of this circular, right, અને બીજા જે forbearance આપેલા એકાઉન્ટમાં જ્યારે restructuring થયું MSME માં કે એમાં કોઈનામાં બી બરાબર અને ઇન્ટરેસ્ટ ના આવ્યું હોય તો એ એકાઉન્ટને તમારે ઇન્ટરેસ્ટને રિકગ્નાઇઝ કરવાની. So, and second is interest recognized during the moratorium period need not be reversed if the account turns to NPA after the moratorium is over. Now the point is, going by the same example, that if I am sanctioned the 100 rupees finance, right, in which there is a moratorium for interest payment also for 6 months. So 1st April is the date of sanction and disbursement, 100 rupees for 6 months, the interest charged in the account and recognized by the branch 6 rupees. My outstanding is 106 rupees. But after that, for 3 months, if I don't pay, once the moratorium ends and I have to pay the interest, if I don't pay, then in that case, as on 30th of September, my account will slip to NPA. But the interest charged during the first 6 months time under which my account was under the moratorium should not be reversed, right? That is the clarification. These are the small issue, but I am sure that you will have this type of issues at the branch, more particularly during this year. Last year bhi હતું ને આ વખતે બી થશે. These are the 4 types of advances: standard assets, substandard assets, doubtful asset, and loss asset. When it is standard asset, it does not disclose any problem. That is fine. Does not carry more than normal risk. Does not carry more than normal risk. Not a non-performing asset. Right? That is standard asset. Substandard asset. अरे friends, I am sorry. મને President Sharma दी phone છે. એક જ મિનિટ હું 1 મિનિટ માં I'll come back. એક જ મિનિટ. સર લેક્ચર હા મારે નથી કરવું. Hello. Am I audible?
Audible, sir. You are audible.
Okay. So standard asset does not have any problem. Substandard asset that will remain in the NPA category. Once it slips to NPA, that has to remain in NPA category for less than 12 months. Then if it exceeds 12 months time, right, it will slip to doubtful category. And then loss asset, doubtful also, there are 2 bifurcation, D1 and D2. If it is for more than 12 months in D1 category, that will slips to D2 category. And provisioning requirements is also there. જેમ NPA ની એજ વધતી જાય એમ provisioning requirement છે વધતી જાય. Loss asset, so that is identified by either by the bank or the internal or the external auditors of the bank. or the RBI inspectors for that matter. Pattern to be followed, we have seen standard, substandard, doubtful, and loss. And in certain cases, this is also relevant that in certain cases the same can be directly classified to doubtful or loss category. If the erosion in the value of securities is more than 50%, then asset will be classified to doubtful category. Once the account slips to NPA, fresh valuation report of the property mortgaged with the bank will have to be done by the independent valuer. And if there is erosion by more than 50%, it has to directly straight away to be classified as doubtful. And if the erosion in the valuation, value of the security is more than 90% or a fraud case, right, straight away it is to be classified as loss. So upgradation is equally very important. That at the time of upgrading the account, only option is to upgrade the same to standard category. Doubtful madi, doubtful 2 madi, doubtful 1 madi, doubtful madi, substandard ma em nahi. If he pays the entire overdue, right, then you have to upgrade the same direct standard asset, standard account. Or a step-by-step ladder need not to be followed at the time of upgradation. Only upon the entire areas it should be upgraded. And with regard to the upgradation of accounts classified as NPA due to restructuring or non-achievement of DCCO. What is DCCO? Date of commencement of commercial operations. The instruction that is major relevant with the infra projects. The instructions as specified for such cases shall continue to be applicable. Now this is very important. That is why I have highlighted it, that where the lending institutions has multiple exposure. It means the branch has multiple exposure with the borrower. Either 2 or 3 type of facilities the borrower is enjoying. No overdue status needs to be achieved with reference to all the exposures of the borrower. For example, મારું કેશ ક્રેડિટ એકાઉન્ટ છે એમાં ઓવરડ્યુ થયું ને એકાઉન્ટ મારું એનપીએ થયું છે અને મારું હાઉસિંગ લોન નું એકાઉન્ટ છે એ એસએમએ 1 માં છે, એસએમએ 0 માં છે, 0 થી 30 ડેઝ માં છે. બરાબર, તો મારે આ એન્ટાયર આઉટસ્ટેન્ડિંગ ઓવરડ્યુ આઉટસ્ટેન્ડિંગ ઇન કેસ ઓફ કેશ ક્રેડિટ ઇઝ ટુ બી પેડ એન્ડ મારું 0 થી 30 ડેઝ નું જે એસએમએ 0 માં બી આઉટસ્ટેન્ડિંગ ઓવરડ્યુ છે એ પણ પે કરવું, ત્યાર પછી જ મારું ઓરિજિનલ એકાઉન્ટ છે એ અપગ્રેડ થાય. આમાં કોઈને ક્વેશ્ચન ના આવી તો મને પૂછજો, વાંધો. The only exception is that once if any bills which are discounted under LC favoring the borrower may not be classified as a borrower. Kait disturbance છે? ચિંતન ભાઈ, hello. So the bills discounted under a LC favoring a borrower may not be classified as NPA even when the other facilities is classified as NPA. Why? Because that if the bills of a borrower which is discounted under the LC favoring a borrower backed by the nationalized bank LC, right, then it is the exposure on the bank, not on the borrower. This is the only exception, right? And in provisioning for loans and advances, the provisions towards the standard assets need not be netted from the gross advances. Standard assets માં જે provision કરવાના છે એ બધા head office માં થાય. એ આમાં કોઈ જગ્યાએ આપણે provisioning આપણા provisioning certificate માં બી certify કરવાના થતા નથી, right? So and it should not be netted off against the gross advances of the branch. Right, and as for the bank, it is to be shown separately as contingent provision against the standard assets under other liability. So provisioning requirement for substandard asset is general provision of 15%, irrespective of security. Right, and for unsecured exposure, which are identified as substandard, would attract additional 10% of provision. મને business loan આપી છે SBI. એ બિઝનેસ લોનમાં કોઈ ગેરંટી નથી, કોઈ સિક્યોરિટી નથી, મારી પર્સનલ ગેરંટી છે. So this is totally unsecured exposure. Then in that case also it is to be classified, or it is to be provided for at 25%. Once my account slips to doubtful, whatever is the unsecured portion is to be provided fully, irrespective of doubtful 1 or if it doubtful 2, it is to be provided fully. But for the secured portion, right, up to 1 year, the provisioning requirement is 25% of the secured portion and 100% of the unsecured exposure on the borrower. If the account remains in the doubtful category for 1 to 3 years, right, on secured portion, the provisioning requirement is 40 rupees, right, 40%, 40 rupees, 40%. And if it remains for more than 3 years, the 100% provision, irrespective of valuation of security, is to be provided for. Loss asset should always be written off. And if loss assets are permitted to remain in the books for any reason, paisa avana baki hai, then 100% of the outstanding should be provided for. Now, friends, this is the last slide, but I need only 5 minutes, and I wish that all of you should concentrate, because this relaxation is permitted by the Reserve Bank of India and resolution plan for MSMEs will have a greater impact for this year also. So what are the conditions? That borrowers should be classified as MSME as on March 31, 2021 in terms of Gazette notification dated June 26, 2020. First is that borrower has to be in MSME as notified in the government official gazette. Second is borrower entity should be a GST registered as on the date of implementation of restructuring. GST registered. Number third is that aggregate exposure, including non-fund based, should not exceed 50 crore as on March 31st March 2021. This is interesting, friends, that aggregate exposures, for example, the borrower is sanctioned 20 crore, 30 crore as the funded exposure and 20 crore by way of LC or bank guarantee, right? Then it is 50 crore, right? So in the total of these two will be considered same as the aggregate exposure. રાઈટ હવે એ જો 60 કરોડ થયું ઇન્ફ્રાના પ્રોજેક્ટમાં એવું થાય કે કેશ ક્રેડિટ ફેસિલિટી ઓછી રકમની હોય અને બેંક ગેરંટી રિક્વાયરમેન્ટ વધારે હોય, બરાબર, તો એ એમએસએમઈ કન્સિડર નહીં થાય, રાઈટ. And restructuring to be invoked by September 30, 2021. RBI came up with so many forbearance for MSMEs and sectors hit with the COVID because of the COVID pandemic. But this is being extended that if at all any account which has not undergone any restructuring under earlier forbearances, right, they have got the window up to September 30, 2021. So before 30th September 21, the borrower has to invoke the restructuring. કે યસ સર, હવે મારી તબિયત બગડી છે અને મારે હવે ઇન્સ્ટોલમેન્ટ ભરવા માટે રીસ્ટ્રક્ચરિંગની જરૂરિયાત છે. તો that is the invocation, writing માં આપે. And not restructure earlier, એ પણ condition છે કે that borrower should not, that account should not have undergone restructuring by earlier collectively for MSME restructuring. Another important condition is that account has to be in standard category as on March 31, 2021. That is the utmost important condition. Though overdue, it is to be in the standard asset category only. And then comes the restructuring to be implemented within 90 days of time. 30 September પછી invoke નહીં કરવાનું અને 31 December પછી implement નહીં કરવાનું. Then this benefit will not be available to those. Lending institutions to keep a provision of 10%. આમનું સેપરેટ સર્ટિફિકેટ આપણે બ્રાન્ચમાંથી આપવું પડશે અને એનો કોન્સોલિડેશનના આધારે ત્યાં હેડ ઓફિસે એનું કમ્પાઇલેશન થઈને કોન્સોલિડેશન થશે. So, and the last is again very important, that if the account is downgraded between 1st April and the date of implementation, may be upgraded. Now the point is that borrower was not aware up to 31st March 2021 right? And if during as on 31st March, sorry, as on 1st of April 21, if account slips to NPA, right? And now if he invokes this restructuring, right, for resolution of stress in the MSME's accounts, right? So if the account in the books of the branch is slipped to NPA, as on the date of implementation, obviously not later than December 31, 2021, 22, sorry, right? So that account requires to be upgraded in the system. That is our responsibility. So as promised, this was my last slide, and I hope I have not run over the time basically, right? So let us keep some time for the question answers. If anyone wants to ask any question, they can please. Otherwise, I am done.
સર આ છેલ્લે તમે જે કીધું ને 26/6/2023 સર્ક્યુલર વાળું
ના અવાજ નથી આવતો તારો.
સર તમે 26/6/2020 વાળા સર્ક્યુલર વાળું કીધું ને જે હાલ
26/6 નું કયો?
સોરી આજે લાસ્ટમાં તમે જે છેલ્લે કીધું ને કે આજે
આ રિઝોલ્યુશન ઓફ સ્ટ્રેસ એસેટ્સ વાળું. હા
સર જરા ફરીથી કહેશો કે એમાં થોડું આમ ખ્યાલ ના આવ્યો સર.
ના ના એમાં સિમ્પલ ચિંતનભાઈ એક જ વસ્તુ છે. તમે મ્યુટ કરી દો પહેલા. એમાં ચિંતનભાઈ સિમ્પલ એક જ વસ્તુ છે ફરીથી કે એકાઉન્ટ MSME હોવું જોઈએ નંબર 1, બરાબર. આપણે શું કહેવાય, સેન્ટ્રલ ગવર્મેન્ટનું નોટિફિકેશન છે, ઓફિશિયલ ગેઝેટમાં છે, ડેફિનેશન પ્રમાણે, એન્ડ એઝ વી ઓલ નો ડેફિનેશન બી વાઇડર કરી છે એમાં, બરાબર, ટર્નઓવરની અને ઇન્વેસ્ટમેન્ટની બંને. તો એ MSME એકાઉન્ટ હોવું જોઈએ નંબર 1. GST હોવું જોઈએ નંબર 2. એગ્રીગેટ એક્સપોઝર ફંડ બેઝ અને નોન ફંડ બેઝ નો થઈને 50 કરોડ કરતા વધારે ના હોવો જોઈએ અક્રોસ બેન્કિંગ ઇન્ડસ્ટ્રી. એટલે એકલી બ્રાન્ચ ને એ સર્ટિફિકેટ આપણે લેવું પડે બોરોવર પાસેથી, બરાબર. તો અને બીજું કે રિસ્ટ્રક્ચરિંગ શુડ નોટ બી ઇન્વોક્ડ આફ્ટર 30th સપ્ટેમ્બર. 30 સપ્ટેમ્બર 2021 પછી એને વિચાર આવે કે હવે મારા એકાઉન્ટમાં સ્ટ્રેસ છે અને મને રિસ્ટ્રક્ચર કરી દો, તો એ બેનિફિટ એને ન મળે. It is to be invoked before 30th September 2021. Again, the condition is that it should not have undergone any restructuring by in virtue of the other relaxation due to COVID. ઘણા બધા આપ્યા છે ને RBI લાસ્ટ યરમાં 2021 માં, એનો બેનિફિટ એને ના લીધેલો હોવો જોઈએ. Account has to be in standard category as on 31st March 2021. ઓવરડ્યુ હોય તો ચાલે 2 મહિનાનું, પણ 90 days ઉપરનું ઓવરડ્યુ ના હોવું જોઈએ. Restructuring is to be implemented within 90 days from the invocation. So it means 30th September પહેલા, latest by 31st December 2021, December 31st 2021 એ એકાઉન્ટ રિસ્ટ્રક્ચરિંગ ઇમ્પ્લિમેન્ટેશન થઈ ગયેલું હોવું જોઈએ. અને 10% નું પ્રોવિઝન કરવાનું છે, એ તો હેડ ઓફિસે કરવાનું છે, એમાં આપણે કશું કરવાનું નથી. And બીજું કે during 1st April 2021 to 31st December 2021, if the account has slips to NPA, then in that case it is to be upgraded.
Which date, sir? This 2 date you spoke?
1st April to 31st December maximum. The wording is that if the account is downgraded between April 1, 2021 and the date of implementation, it can be upgraded. એટલે સિમ્પલ, લેટેસ્ટ ડેટ 31st ડિસેમ્બર છે એટલે 31st ડિસેમ્બર. So friends, any questions?
કોઈ members ને કઈ questions હોય તો આપણને we are lucky enough that we have got Hitesh sir for today's session. અને આપણા કઈ પણ સવાલો હોય like silliest question we can ask, so that's not the issue. આમ તો આપણા ઘરના જ છે એટલે આપણે એમને ગમે ત્યારે પૂછી શકીએ, પણ અત્યારે આપણને લાઈક એક પ્રોફેશનલી પણ એમણે બધું એક્સપ્લેન કર્યું છે, તો ઘણા બધા સવાલો બધાના હશે. તો please, if anyone has any question, so feel free to ask. Any silly question can be, and it is completely fine.
So, friends, any questions?
કોઈ members ને કઈ questions હોય તો આપણને we are lucky enough that we have got Hitesh sir for today's session. અને આપણા કઈ પણ સવાલો હોય like silliest question we can ask, so that's not the issue. આમ તો આપણા ઘરના જ છે એટલે આપણે એમને ગમે ત્યારે પૂછી શકીએ, પણ અત્યારે આપણને લાઈક એક પ્રોફેશનલી પણ એમણે બધું એક્સપ્લેન કર્યું છે, તો ઘણા બધા સવાલો બધાના હશે. તો please, if anyone has any question, so feel free to ask. Any silly question can be, અને
So that's it.
સર આ જે ટુરિઝમ માટે થઈને હોટલ ઇન્ડસ્ટ્રી માટે થઈને પણ બધા કઈક સ્પેસિફિક કઈક રિલેક્સેશન આયેલા છે ને?
પણ એ NPA માટે નથી.
અચ્છા ઓકે, એનપીએ માટે નથી. એનપીએ રેકગ્નિશન માટે થઈને એવા કોઈ સેક્ટરલ સ્પેસિફિક કોઈ નોર્મ્સ નથી.
તો આમાં છે ને હોસ્પિટલના ને એના આયા છે. તો મોર ઓર લેસ આ જ છે, એમાં બીજું કશું પેલું નથી. પણ એક સર્ક્યુલર છે ખરા 100% એનો. તો ચિંતનભાઈ, મે આઈ ટેક યોર લીવ નાઉ? આઈ હોપ એવરીવન હેઝ એન્જોયડ. કારણ કે આ તો સ્ક્રીન ઉપર છે એટલે હું એવું માની જ લઉં કે બધા એન્જોય કર્યું છે. બરાબર. પણ કોઈને કંઈ પણ ક્વેશ્ચન હોય, they can reach to me anytime, no problem. Right?
Yes.
Right,
Yes.
sir.
Thank you, sir. It would have been. We would have got. It would have been fun if we would have got to hear you personally. But no. Yes, sir. So we would be keeping a soon felicitation of Aniket bhai. So I will definitely invite you for the same, sir.
Definitely,
And
I'll come.
we'll definitely have a physical interaction, sir. And meanwhile, thank you, sir. Thank you for managing to come today and virtually spending your valuable time, almost
Thank
2-3
you
hours.
all participants for the patient hearing. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Thanks a lot.
Thanks a lot. Bye.
Thank you, sir. Bye, sir.